Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Wizard Naruto teaches at Hogwarts. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by PA Zerolini and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Thank you for meeting with me, Milady, an elderly man said, standing as a young woman walked into the unremarkable room. The old man was dressed oddly in the woman's opinion. His long white beard was tucked into the belt of his robe, which had large white stars patterned all over. Blue eyes twinkled behind half-moon glasses that rested on a long crooked nose. "It must be important for an acquaintance of my great-uncle's to contact us," the woman replied. She wore the formal attire of one in her position. A white robe covered her, and a large hat with a kanji of fire sat proudly on her head, with cloth flowing down from it to cover all sides of her neck bar her face. Her face was beautiful. Large brown eyes, small petite nose and pouty lips. In the center of her forehead was a small purple diamond, perhaps a tattoo, the thought. Overall she looked decidedly young for the leader of a powerful ninja nation. And he said as much. The woman smirked, her hat hiding her expression. "Do not let your eyes fool you, Mr. Dumbledore. I am much older than I appear. But we did not come to discuss my age or capabilities as leader of my village. Of what did you deem important enough to demand a meeting with you? Even going so far as to force your way through the barrier? My dear woman, force is such an inappropriate term. I merely wish to ask the niece of my dearly departed friend a favor. Who just happens to be leader of a ninja nation. This is an international matter, no matter how discreet you wish to keep it. Due to your connection with my great-uncle, the second Hokage, I have allowed this meeting and will consider your request depending on what it is. I currently speak on behalf of all 5 Kages and their daimyos, therefore, I, Tsunade Senju, Hokage of the Konoha, ask you, Albus Percival Wulfric Brian Dumbledore, what you wish of our country." Dumbledore frowned slightly. This was not working out as he had hoped. The ninja were as stubborn and reclusive now as they were 100 years ago. This meeting had taken much persuasion and, regrettably, force to attain. The magic that protected their world from outside influence was as strong as ever. Although they called their magic chakra and could manipulate it in many different ways. "Lady Hokage, how familiar are your people with the way of the outside world?" Dumbledore asked. The Hokage frowned. "Better than how familiar you are to ours. If you hadn't noticed, we're speaking English. Our nations have adopted Japanese as our first language due to our location in the Pacific Ocean, your world calls it. We are up to date with matters, most specifically any that could affect our lands. What is it that you ask of us?" The elderly man started when he was told that English wasn't her native tongue. She spoke it fluently and without a hint of an accent. This would be troublesome. How could they have so much information on the outside world, enough to speak various languages fluently? What about the world of magic? "How much knowledge do you have of witched, wizards and the ministry then?" he questioned. "Ministry?" Dumbledore smiled, as if indulging a small child. Tsunade decided she didn't like that look. "Why the Ministry of Magic? The establishment that governs over all magic in England, the leading country in all magic. Why in the whole world, England has the most advanced and powerful techniques." Tsunade then decided she really didn't like the slight smug tone that was coating his voice and then decided to stop him talking then. "Oh, magic. That's right, that's what you people call chakra and need to control through wands. Well, England you say. That's in the United Kingdom, right? Well, I agree the English are quite advanced when it comes to magic, but I have to say, your teaching programs are similar all over the world. Why, France is quite close with England. Though they do not call their government the ministry, they prefer to call it the bureaucracy of magic. In Australia it is the Dominion, in America it's the presidency, all use the same basic teaching methods, so there are very few different styles." Albus's eyes widened. Their information network was incredible. The ministry barely had enough information on Europe, let alone south of the equator. Yet here were these people who had been secluded from the rest of the world, who had top quality intel on everywhere and everyone. "Was the objective of this meeting to gain information on your possible enemies and allies?" Tsunade questioned harshly. "We are not your scouts or spies. We do not give out information to outsiders." No, Dumbledore hastily shook his head. He can't recall when he was last this much out of his depth. The woman even knew his full name, which he only ever signed or said on official documents and business. "Have your people heard of a dark wizard by the name of Voldemort?" he said somewhat desperately. The Hokage frowned thoughtfully. "Dark wizard. Ah, that's what you people call missing Nin, yes." At Dumbledore's puzzled look, she waved that thought away. Dumbledore tucked that bit of information in the back of his mind for reviewing at his own leisure. Voldemort, once known as a Mr. Tom Riddle. Orphan. Son of a magic-born and non-magic-born. Taken to England's Hogwarts once he was at the appropriate age of 11. When your society deems them old enough to educate. Was an exceptional student through schooling. Gathered followers whilst in school as well as after graduation. Adopted the name Voldemort when started his campaign to overtake your government. Stopped when following a prophecy. Tsunade snorted. Who believed in prophecies? Dumbledore was shocked. Their information was so thorough, so complete. They couldn't have information that detailed on every witch and wizard, could they? Tsunade read his expression easily. In answer to what you're thinking, we do not. We do not have enough time or space to keep records on every magic being that you govern. We paid attention to this man because if left unattended, he could have been a threat to our society or a possible ally if succeeding in his campaign, so we needed to know your situation was handled. He was a threat to your world and so was considered a possible enemy to ours. We have files on the main players in your world and others. We must observe every possible threat. Then you know that he has returned. He is a threat once more. We know that through some ritual, he was able to achieve a corporal body once again and is now once again plotting a war with your government. Good, then that leaves less explaining to do. I would like to hire your best ninja to guard one Harry Potter throughout the coming years. Dumbledore propositioned. It was so sudden, Tsunade was speechless. You want to what? Hire out your ninja. To protect Harry Potter, he has had several attempts on his life in the last month, all with him unaware of it, mind you. You are a military nation that hires out your forces, are you not? I am a client. I wish for your best ninja to defend Harry Potter and the grounds of Hogwarts too while we're at it for the next few years. Funds are not an issue, I assure you. Since you know who Voldemort is, then you understand that it is of the utmost importance that we defeat him. Harry Potter is the only one who is able to, as the prophecy foretold. Dumbledore went on to explain. Now, the semester starts September 1st, but would like for your ninja to meet with the wizards who are overseeing his safety at. No. The leader of Konoha exploded, finally getting her voice. Dumbledore staggered slightly under the pressure of her chakra. We have remained independent of your world for centuries. We do not hand out shinobi to every person that says they'll pay. This war with Voldemort is your problem, not ours. If he becomes a threat to us, then we will deal with it how we always have. He is the epitome of evil, but we have watched countless countries fall to enemies who become their new heroes and leaders. Why, to the people who England invaded, you would have been seen as the worst type of nation there is, but you yourselves do not see it. The Aborigines of Australia, the natives of America. Should we have intervened when you were expanding your territory? No. This is simply another one of your little wars that do not involve us, so we shall no be involved. Dumbledore was properly cowed. But he did not come this way to receive no for an answer. Surely you must see that Voldemort is nothing but evil. If he conquers our world, what's to say he won't move on to yours? The knowledge of the elemental nations is extremely rare in your world. You, who only know of us through meeting my great uncle a handful of times when he was on reconnaissance missions, should know this. A grand total of 12 books in your country and 93 worldwide have any sort of solid information on us, and that's educated guesses at best. Ninjas are bedtime stories mothers read to their children. Unless this Voldemort likes chazzing fairy tales, such as what we have become, then I doubt we will see much of a problem from him. You do not know how resourceful or powerful he has become. Although I do not say it often, if at all, I am one of the most powerful wizards of our time, and Voldemort could defeat me. The Hogwarts headmaster's magic swelled at this. Tsunade snorted. His power was nothing. Why would that matter to me? To us you would rank Chuanin, maybe even a Jounin, but a Jounin nonetheless. Dumbledore frowned at the unfamiliar term, his power swelling then decreasing and then swelling again. The Hokage sighed, there was no harm in telling him their ranks, after all it was written in a book in their world. Mind you, it was only one, and it was in America at the moment, in the fantasy section. Well, if the man did his homework proper, then he would know already. We have a ranking system. What military organization doesn't? First we have academy students, those who have just started learning our ways. They are about equal to your first years at wizarding schools. Then we have Genin, ninja and training. They are at the level of your graduates. Chuanin is next, your full-fledged ninja. They match your auras and the majority of your wizarding world. Jounin are the elite. They are the ones who carry out our most difficult missions, this is where you might possibly be in terms of power. Then there are Anbu, they deal with the Black Ops missions, they are the elite of the elite, we know no one in your country able to oppose our Anbu. Personally chosen by cages to be their bodyguards, hands, eyes and ears. Sannin, there are only 3 in our world and you're looking at 1, and then cage level, the leaders and rulers of every single ninja in our land. There are 5 of us, technically 6, but that's not important right now, and we each rule our own nation. That's 7 rankings and you barely make it to rank 4. This Voldemort will not cause us trouble. I assure you my lady, that maybe in terms of power we are inferior, but do not assume superiority over us. Many a fight has been won, not due to strength, but ingenuity. I myself have assisted in the creation of an object that could turn any material into gold and make oneself immortal. Wild hand movements accompanied his argument, most childish in the Leaf Leader's opinion. Tsunade stared at him with barely restrained contempt. Immortality. That's the best you have. We have a rogue ninja, like your dark wizard, who is able to live forever due to him taking over or possessing different bodies and absorbing the powers that the host body holds. We have entire families that can see through walls, through your very body. One of my advisors has an IQ of over 200 and one of my subordinates has personally arranged peace treaties with every major village in our lands. Do not lecture me as if I were a child, Mr. Dumbledore. I am aware of the realities of battle. I have been in more wars and fights than you can possibly imagine and have seen things that would curl your beard. We are not taking sides in your war. If Voldemort came to us instead of you, then we would give him the same answer. We are done here. Tsunade turned to leave the room. She had her Anbu waiting just outside that would be escorting her back to the cage summit. She needed to tell the other cages of what the outsider wanted and then they needed to get back to their war. As her hand touched the door handle, she heard it barely whispered. Imperio. Her hand stopped, the door handle rattled. A heartbeat later, a man was beside her. Dumbledore stared. He should have known she would have brought her bodyguards. This must be one of those Anbu. The man towered over the Hokage. He was dressed in black pant and a sleeveless black shirt that was covered in a strange grey armor that left his shoulders and arms bare. A symbol was tattooed to his left arm, which Dumbledore memorized instantly. Black gauntlets with the same colored armor covered his forearms. Pouches were strapped to each of his thighs by what seemed to be bandages. But what caught his attention the most was the white porcelain mask that covered the man's face. It was shaped into that of a creature, with blood-red paint to outline its features. Albus looked as the man stared at the frozen Hokage, unable to tell what expression was on his face due to the white mask. "Hokage-sama?" the man questioned. Dumbledore didn't allow the frown to cross his face, they were speaking Japanese. He was a little rusty, but he may be able to fluke this. "Return to your post. I will come when I am finished." The masked man caught the off tone to his leader's voice. Her eyes were tight and her posture stiff. Well, the conversation hadn't been going in a good direction from what he could tell, so it was understandable. Bowing, the man was about to leave when. "Make sure you and the others are out of hearing distance. I am going to be questioning this Dumbledore on the outside." The man frowned, why would he not be allowed near? But an order was an order and an instant later he was gone. Waiting a good few minutes to make sure her guards had left, Dumbledore revealed his hidden wand. Pointing it at the Hokage, he said softly. "Turn around." The Hokage did so. In her mind she was raging. How was this possible? He should not have the power to do this to her. Her mastery of her mind was impeccable. This would be one of the forbidden jutsu or spells as they called them. But from what she knew, she shouldn't be able to realize she is under his command unless this is his own spell or a modified version. "I apologize for having to resort to this, but your indifference on the matter has forced my hand. The ends justify the means. Voldemort must be destroyed and I will not allow you to stand idle whilst people who are precious to me are killed when you could have done something." Tsunade blinked, being able to slightly understand his reasoning. "I can assume from your already impressive display of knowledge that you would be able to name the spell I am using. Imperium. Able to fully control a person's mind and body. As you know, my power is nowhere near yours, so I had to modify it a little. You see, I have done my homework on your kind. One book so kindly stated that your power was so much greater than ours that you can barely sense it. So how were you to know when I was gathering my power compared to, say, when I was upset?" Tsunade's eyes widened. The wild hand gestures, the fluctuating magic she felt around him. He was preparing for this from the start. But even so, concentrating his power shouldn't be enough to take over her mind. "Now your great uncle did leave me with something extraordinary." Dumbledore continued, eyes sparkling. "His essence of magic was water, as you probably well know, and so a tiny vial was left when he had to battle some rather nasty impasse. Spirits of fire horses. So he used his water magic and I just happened to get some. Now," Tsunade was strongly reminded of the academy teachers, magic has this little branch called blood magic. It is highly dangerous, mind you, and illegal, but very useful in the right hands. Using blood magic, I was able to separate your senju, is it? Hereditary traits. I won't go into the details, much too pressed for time for that, but I am able to control you to some extent with this and the Imperium curse." Tsunade was outraged, the second this jutsu wore off, she would personally turn him into a bloody pulp. "Now, I have already taken the time to draw up a contract for our little deal. If you would be so kind as to sign, I will take my leave and you may return to your country." Fuming, Tsunade was forced to walk over to a plain table that held the said documentation Dumbledore wanted signed. Damn it, if only she could move a single finger by her own will, the table would become dust. Ignoring her obvious anger, Dumbledore continued talking. I also understand that by signing this contract, you will be involving your lands in an international dispute. This will most likely have to be discussed with the other lands. I chose to confront your lands because you have the highest level of honor, so without further ado. The wizard waved his wand and Tsunade bit her finger. Another wave and she had signed her name at the bottom of the contract. Dumbledore then wrote down his very long signature. Now you have signed a contract between us, I hope you will honor it. You may have your vengeance against me after Voldemort is destroyed if you wish. But I also hope you will understand why I have to do this. He lowered his wand and stopped the curse. Tsunade clicked her fingers the second she was able. Dumbledore flew across the room and was slammed into the opposite wall. When his vision cleared, he was staring at 3 different porcelain masks. Each was a different pattern. Was that one a dove? Okage-sama, what are your orders? A voice said. It was the man from before. His back was to him and he was kneeling before the Hokage. Now he could see the man's back, he could also see the sheathed sword that was strapped to his back and that it didn't look uncomfortable there at all. This man has forced my hand. Literally. We must meet with the other cages. They may hate it, but we'll have to pool all of our knowledge of the outside. I'm sending a squad for guard duty with the occasional assassination. Dumbledore could only catch bits of the conversation, he was going to have to brush up on his Japanese. Here, return his stick to him. He may leave. A hand forced an object into his hand. Only then did Dumbledore notice that his wand had been taken from him. The Hokage turned to face him. Your methods are disgusting and dishonorable. Know this, your actions today have made it near impossible for our 2 worlds to ever be allied. I will need to discuss the situation to my fellow Cage. Then she paused, he gazed locked onto the signed contract. You will have you ninja, you will have our best. But be warned, we are a different people, we view things in a different perspective. Understand they will act according to how our society dictates, not yours. They are not your puppets, we have our own methods of communication that you will not be able to tamper with or review. Dumbledore nodded, expecting as much. He slid a hand into his sleeve, not missing the tensing of the guards as he did so. They were alert, good. He withdrew a piece of parchment with very neat curly handwriting on it. I understand your terms, and I have done my utmost to make this small alliance easier. If you read through the contract it will state what I would like done. Now here are the directions to where the headquarters of the Order of the Phoenix lay. They are the secret group of witches and wizards who are fighting Voldemort's Death Eaters at the moment. Since our government refuses to publicly acknowledge his return, we are forced to use guerrilla tactics. Meet with them to form a plan on defending Harry Potter. I have also listed Hogwarts and its students in the contract, but Harry Potter is the priority. Dumbledore took out what seemed to be an old key from a hidden pocket inside his robe. The ninja holding him stared. I will take my leave. If your ninja would meet the order as soon as they can, it would be greatly appreciated. The Anbu tensed, sensing something was about to happen. Sure enough, a few seconds later, Albus had disappeared. The Anbu didn't waste a second, instantly spreading out to cover their Hokage, as well as scanning the surrounding area. He's gone. That was one of their methods of transportation. Now we must head to the summit and discuss this with the cages. From what he just let slip, their country is in the middle of a civil cold war too, Tsunade said wearily. The Anbu turned to her and nodded. A millisecond later, their bodies had blurred and were gone. The only sign anyone was in the room, a crack on the wall. The instant his feet hit the familiar floor of his office, he collapsed. Albus? A worried voice yelled. Hands helped him to stand. He looked around and saw the members of the order all waiting for him to return. Why hello everyone, what may I do for you? He said smiling. Minerva, the one to call out, glared at him slightly. You know very well, headmaster. What did the ninja have to say? She replied sternly, not allowing him to brush off his moment of weakness. Well, we will be hosting a squad of them for the coming few years until Harry has graduated. From what I know, that is usually 4 people. They will also be protecting the grounds, so we won't have any more midnight skirmishes with the mercenary wizards. I have requested and confirmed that they will be sending their best, so please be aware they will be incredibly battle-hardened. They are also doing this completely not of their own free will. Everyone in the room stared. What do you mean, Albus? A man with a spinning false eye demanded. The rest of the room nodded. Well, they were quite adamant to keep out of our affairs in the interest of their own, admirable on their half, but completely unacceptable on ours, so using methods I do not wish to discuss, the leader of one of the most powerful villages signed a contract with me. They are honor-bound to follow it. I am hoping that once they see how righteous our cause is, they will be willing to stay on as staff full-time until the war is over. The room was quiet before it exploded with sound, everyone trying to be heard. You forced them? The ministry is going to love this. How are having unwilling guards going to be any good? If you could force them, then are they powerful enough? You forced ninja. What do you mean by village? Are they that uncivilized? Ninja? They actually exist. What is Cornelius going to say when he finds out you have ninja? How did you force ninja? Silence. The man with the spinning eye yelled. The room quietened. He turned his gaze towards Dumbledore, even his spinning eye was still and pinned on the tall thin man. You obviously have some plan and faith in these ninja skills. So we have to trust that you know what you're doing. But Voldemort's plan doesn't only involve killing Harry, if it did then we would be facing every Death Eater out there. No, now we have protection for Harry, we must focus on stopping his influence from reaching the Muggle world and from turning any other good witches and wizards to his side. He is planning a complete takeover of all magic and we must stop him. The people in the room stared in awe at the retired aura before them. Never has he said such an inspiring speech before. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled behind his glasses. Well said Moody, now a handful of you must go and retrieve Harry from his relatives, we have intercepted a communication that says the enemy plans to attack there tonight. Moving him will be dangerous as they will most likely attack you whilst you are moving. The guards will be meeting you at Grimmauld Place to further discuss their job description, so someone must be there at all time to await their arrival. Moody, I would like that person to be you, that way you can keep an eye on them at all times. I trust they will do their jobs, but they will most likely be searching for any information about us they can get. The room nodded, Moody scowled. Keeping an eye on the best ninja available sounded like a death wish, but he knew it needed to be done. Very well, I have much to attend to, and I'm sure you are all busy people. Can I offer anyone a portkey? I'm a Japanese speaking. They did what? A large man with chocolate-colored skin slammed his fist down on the table. If it wasn't made with chakra-reinforced stone, Tsunade was sure it would have been reduced to dust. Calm down Rakage, this problem is going to take much planning, not brutal strength. A small man with a large bulbous nose said sternly. I must disagree with you here Tsuchikage, and very attractive female with long red hair argued. This could quite very well be seen as an act of war. Forcing the leader to sign a contract demanding military forces from her, especially now, we can ignore it and focus on our own problems, when we are finished we can crush the arrogant man. The Mizukage has a point, a young man with red hair said. He had been quiet through the entire meeting until now. This is their problem, as the Hokage told them. Forcing her hand after she declined means you do not have to honor this contract at all. Tsunade frowned. As much as she agreed with her fellow Kage, she could not in good faith dishonor a contract signed with her own blood, no matter how underhanded the method used to obtain it was. The Kazukiage has a point, the old man said. But we can discuss the outside wood later, what are we to do about our war? It seems that Sound was just a pawn of the Akatsukis, they were the cannon fodder. So Orochimaru is still a member then? It seems that way yes, which means their extraction of the tailed beasts will go much quicker. But only the 9 tails and 8 tails remain. With Orochimaru not able to do the ritual until he is well, Akatsuki will have to wait for him. What does Itachi think of Orochimaru using his little brother as a host body? From what has been gathered he is most against it. Why would it bother him? He massacred his entire clan. But left his brother alive, he must have some sentimental attachment to him. But what does Sasuke think of having to work with the one that killed his family? They have been kept separate. From what our spies have heard, Sasuke knows he's not strong enough so will wait until he thinks himself ready. So how are they able to work together? It seems Pain and Orochimaru have come to a deal. The snake will capture the 9 tails in exchange for Sasuke. Itachi is fine with that. He has no choice, it is his leader's decision, although I think he might fight when the time comes though. Orochimaru has certainly planned this well. Orochimaru is the one after the kid. He does not deserve to bear the name Kage. The Raikage said, anger and disgust coloring his tone. How much time do we have before he takes the Uchiha and the Akatsuki start hunting in earnest? Asked the Kazukiage. Well when the Uchiha turned traitor he was 13. It was a year later the other turned as well. When they were 16 was the original planned date for the transfer, but my Anbu were able to stop that at heavy cost. So they would have to be 19 before Orochimaru can attempt again. They are currently 17 if I remember correctly, so roughly 2 years, 2.5 at most. The Hokage explained. Wait a moment, the Tsuchikage said. The others turned towards him. He had a look of deep concentration on his face, Tsunade swore she could see another wrinkle forming. How old is this Harry Potter? Tsunade blinked, that was a drastic change of subject. He is 15 from the information I have been given. She replied cautiously. The Tsuchikage did not elaborate. The room was silent. The timing is almost too perfect, the quiet voice of the young sand leader said. The hidden rock leader smiled at the redhead. The boy was quick. What are you thinking? Demanded the hidden clouds Raikage. Orochimaru has to wait until the boy turns 19 yes. The small man explained. The Raikage nodded in understanding. The guard contract with the outside is until the Potter boy graduates. They graduate at 17. He is 15. It clicked. You could visibly see when each of the leaders grasped the idea. "You're thinking of sending the squad with Naruto?" Tsunade gasped. It was brilliant. This way, Naruto would be out of harm's way and they could re-divert all their forces to taking down Sound. No matter the quality of shinobi, you can't fight a war without an army. "This might work," the Leaf leader said eventually. The Tsuchikage grinned. "So we send the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki outside. Who else shall accompany him?" the Mizukage asked. This had nothing to do with her country, but it was always handy to stay informed of such international matters. "I will send my Alpha Squad," the Hokage stated, determination shining from her eyes. The Kazukiyage's eyes widened. "Are you sure you need to send all of them? They are arguably the most powerful and lethal force at the moment. Their strength and cunning would be a great asset to our war efforts." "Be that as it may, I would rather them with Naruto. They are familiar with his command and if any enemy were to discover their location, they are the best suited to defend against. Plus, focusing on what the wizard told me. The outside is politically unstable, in the middle of a civil cold war. The team is intelligent enough to evade questions whilst gathering information. I have no doubt they will try and get them to stay, so they need to be as diplomatic as possible when saying no." The cages all snorted in amusement. Tsunade allowed herself a small grin. Although he had been training to be better, diplomatic isn't the word you would usually use to describe Uzumaki Naruto. Their team is also highly suited to guard duty of Hogwarts Castle. Wow, where do they get their names from? Looking up, she met the gaze of each of the cages with a stern glare. "For this mission to be any sort of success, in both aspects, I will need any and all information you have on the outside world, specifically the culture of Wizarding England and its government." The gazes of the other cage turned stony, except for the Kazukiyage, whose expression remained impassive. "You realize you are asking for free information?" growled the Raikage. Tsunade glared right back. "I am. I know this is a bitter pill to swallow, but for the success of this mission and the war, we need this information." "I agree." Tsunade stared at her fellow female cage, shocked. She would have expected Gaara to be the first to say yes. "Oh, don't look at me like that. I am well aware of the situation and this is the best course of action. Besides, information on the outside isn't really that hard to get and can hardly be used to harm my country in any way," the woman said airily, flipping her red hair over her shoulder. "The Land of Wind has the most information due to our location furthest west. We are closest to the barrier, so we are the first target should the outside attack," the Kazukiyage said, his monotone voice showing support for the Hokage. "Never thought I'd see the day I'd be willingly giving free information to Konoha," the Tsuchikage muttered. "I agree as well," he said to the room. "Cloud will not be the only village that doesn't help out its allies." "We agree as well," the Raikage said loudly, his fist denting the table once again. The Hokage smiled warmly. "I know how difficult it is for you to give us this information, so I will make it as painless as I can. It just so happens that my Anbu Guard squad is Team Alpha, so they are here right now. I will not force you to repeat any of the information you give us more than once and you will only need to tell my squad. Is this agreeable?" The cages nodded and Tsunade clicked her fingers. Instantly 4 ninja appeared behind her, kneeling, heads down. The same ninja from her meeting with Dumbledore. "Alpha Squad, stand and remove your masks." The 4 stood and in one swift and practiced movement, revealed their identities. 4 Leaf ninjas stood, each one had a reputation that made them legendary. "Alpha Squad reporting," Team Leader Fox 1 said formally, his blonde hair had grown longer but was still as spiky as ever, the Kazukiyage mused. "You need not be so formal here, Uzumaki," the Mizukage said, smiling. The blonde relaxed his stance, as well as the others. "What did you need, Bachan?" he asked, grinning and nodding his head to Gaara, the Kazukiyage. Gaara nodded back and continued observing the squad before him. Naruto had grown a lot in the past few years. No longer the short boy he had first met, but a strong-looking young man, standing out around 6 feet. His muscles were overly bulky, as most ninjas weren't, but wiry and strong. 6 scars marked his face in the image of whiskers, the sign of the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Bright blue eyes studied the room, but there were shadows that flicked behind that gaze. More darkness than the average shinobi, but that was to be expected with Naruto's history. "What have I said about you calling me that, brat?" the Hokage growled. Naruto's grin got wider, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "You call me brat, I call you Bachan," he countered. "Mama, Naruto. Let's listen to what the cages have to say, nah." Naruto looked up into the smiling eye of his former sensei, Hada Kakashi. Gravity-defying silver hair stood at a strange angle. The lower half of his face covered by a cloth mask, one eye covered by his hit eye. Even though he was team leader, Kakashi still used the fact that he was his student to get away with being informal. "Troublesome, nothing good can come of being called in front of all 5 cages," muttered one of their other teammates. Naruhina, acknowledged as the best strategic planner of their time, as well as the most lazy. Hair tied back into a spiky ponytail and ears which had been pierced many times. It is our fate to receive such missions, it comes without skill, the cool voice of Hyuga Niji said to his mumbling companion. His pupil-less slanderer eyes seemingly staring at nothing, but seeing everything. Long brown hair flowed down his back and tied off into a small ponytail. Taicho, I suggest we listen. Yeah, so. What can we do for you? Squad Alpha, you have a mission. It is guard duty of a boy called Harry Potter and the establishment he resides. The Hokage said. Team Alpha stared. There was more to this guard duty that meets the eye. In the past Naruto would have complained out loud that it was a waste of his time, but now. Experience had told him to keep quiet and examine all the facts, though he was known for the occasional outburst now and then. He would wait for the catch. The guard detail will take place outside the chakra barrier. The Tsuchikage said. Each of the Anbu's posture stiffened. They were part of the few who knew about the chakra barrier, being so involved in politics that each of their positions demanded. To go outside, it has never been heard of in their time. The barrier lay west of the land of chaos and the land of order and circled the entire elemental nations. It kept their way of life isolated from those who were too weak-minded to accept it or too power-hungry to try and exploit it. Mission details? Kakashi questioned. Harry Potter is a boy who is prophesied to be the only one who can take down the wizard Voldemort. Voldemort is currently trying to take over the government in power and proclaim himself ruler. The residence Potter is staying at is one Hogwarts school of witchcraft and wizardry. Witches and wizards are what they call people who have chakra or magic as they call it. Different to us however because they choose to hide their true nature from civilians or muggles. Their naming is confusing, but you will get the hang of it. This mission will last until Potter has graduated from Hogwarts. So approximately 3 years. Tsunade described. The Anbu were silent as they absorbed the information. This mission was going to be difficult. We of the other nations are going to give you as much knowledge about this world you can handle. Each of you are fluent in English. At their nods, the Tsuchikage continued, good, that is their main language. Now get comfy because you are going to have to learn an entire culture in the next few hours. Naruto grinned and made himself comfy leaning against a wall. Go for it Gramps, after all, I'll need to know this much since I'm the Godam's heir. Plot bunnies too. 4 of the most powerful and important people in the elemental nations stood in the middle Grimmauld place, looking for the house marked number 12. The first was the current head of the prestigious Hyuga clan, its most gifted yet. Hokage's personal Anbu guard and also his village's 1st Division attack squad leader. One was the heir to the Nara clan, as well as being one of the most prized advisors to the 5 Kages during the war and betrothed of the Suna princess. He was next in line to head the torture and investigation division of the Anbu. Third was wielder of the powerful Dijutsu, the Sharingan, and inheritor of the legend of the White Fang. Student to the 4th, one of the greatest Hokage ever to have lived. Chief commander of the 3rd Division of the Allied Ninja Army. The last person was the most important. Son of the 4th Hokage and former princess of the Whirlpool country, godson of one of the Sannin, adopted grandson of another Sannin. Student of the famous Copy Ninja and Jinchuriki of the 9-tailed demon fox, as well as being acknowledged and trained as the next Rakudame Hokage. But each of these people were dressed the exact same, the only difference their masks and weapons. Dog, dove, deer and fox. The entire world outside of the barrier made Fox nervous, though he hid it well. He was an accomplished sage, and the sage crafts needed nature chakra to work, but here amongst all of the brick buildings and metal contraptions, he felt hardly any of nature's soothing chakra at all. This meant that he would be hard-pressed to use any of his sage techniques, if at all. "Dear, what do you see?" Fox asked in their native tongue. It had been agreed upon that unless speaking to the locals of this country, they would converse in their own tongue. It would make it harder on eavesdroppers. A strong Jinjutsu has been placed over the building we seek. Curious. Deer replied, studying the building with his eyes. Even though his mask covered it, his teammates knew that the veins around his eyes were bulging slightly as chakra was forced through them to activate his clan's unique Dijutsu, the Byakugan. Curious? Questioned Deer. He was always able to pick up on the inflections and words that people used, something his training at the tea department gave him. I see very old chakra surrounding it, as well as very strong new chakra. My guess is that there were numerous security measures put in place when first used that have been boosted and added to recently by someone very skilled. How powerful? Asked Dog. Fox saw him scratch his head, the action hiding his adjustment of his headband. Fox was sure he was examining the building with his Sharingan. A low whistle surprised him. Dove nodded. Powerful enough to back what that bearded man said about those sticks boosting their power. If this is the case we must examine these one things and send back a report to Hokage-sama. Fox frowned. If this magic was stronger than what they had been told, the mission just might be more difficult than it already was. Fox Taicho. Dove's voice broke through his thoughts. His head snapped towards Dove. There is a man in there who has an object imbued with chakra in his eye socket. It has been staring at us for a while. I believe it may be able to see us. Fox cursed. He had been hoping to infiltrate and gather information before revealing themselves to their client. Not the most honorable way to conduct business, but then again, neither was theirs. What is he doing? Fox asked. He has called for the other people in residence, except for a few younger ones who are remaining upstairs. I think they are waiting to see what we do. This is a test, Taicho. To see if we can find a way into their hidden house. Dove finished with a snarl. They did not like it when their employers did not have faith in their abilities, it just made their job so much harder. Fox cracked the back of his head in annoyance. Fine, here's what we're gonna do. Well, Moody. What are they doing? Asked a nervous Arthur Weasley. The rest of the order members that has escorted Harry the previous night were waiting for an answer as well. The kitchen was a bit crowded. The cavernous room was dim and gloomy, smoke hung in the air making complex and intricate shapes. A large wooden table surrounded by many stood in the middle of the room. The table was covered in goblets, empty wine bottles and a handful of parchment. Moody was silent, making sure he was seeing correctly. They're leaving. He growled. What kind of no-good bodyguards turn around and leave because they can't make it through the front door? Aren't they supposed to be all-powerful? A Fidelius charm beat them. Snorted Nymphadora Tonks. Are you sure they're leaving? An oily voice asked. Moody turned so his non-magical eye could glare at Severus Snape, his magical eye still trained on the visitors, seeing through the back of his head. Dumbledore was quite positive they would be sufficient. Well, if them walking down to the end of the street isn't them leaving, then I don't know what. Moody cut himself off and whirled around to where his eye last saw the strangers. What is it? A tall, black wizard asked, Kingsley Shacklebolt. They've gone. He whispered. The wizards and witches murmured restlessly. What do you mean gone? They can have just gone. Apparition is impossible around here without my father's warnings going nuts. Sirius Black, owner of number 12 Grimmauld Place, demanded. Maybe your eye is going as mad as you, Moody, Severus said snidely. Moody growled. He would bet his remaining eye that those ninja had just disappeared. But he saw no magic in their movements, and Sirius is right, the security spells that coded this house were so impossibly complex and sensitive, one of them had to go off. I'm telling you they just disappeared. Moody shouted, frustrated. A nervous and quiet Mrs. Weasley stood in the corner of the room, mentally patting herself on the back for the imperturbable charm she had put around the kitchen. She didn't want the children listening in on this particular conversation. Angry voices erupted in the room, most just saying nonsense, others speculating on the guard's powers or lack of powers. Snape continued to pick flaws at Moody's eye, which was spinning in its socket. Moody was ignoring everyone and focusing on what he was seeing. His eye was moving so fast he wasn't able to keep up with the images it was showing him. Flashes of a shadow here, a small surge of magic, and much running and leaping. Moody's breath became slightly labored as he poured magic into his eye, urging the images to become clearer. The best he could grasp were blurs, shadows, reflections off glass. The things were moving too fast for his eye to follow. People seemed to notice Moody's slowly rising panic. Mad Eye, what is it? A concerned Remus Lupin asked. The voices subsided as the people registered the incredible speed the magical eye was spinning. He didn't answer, instead he whirled around to face the corner where Mrs. Weasley had remained, nervous and quiet. She flinched as everyone's gazes landed on her and completely froze when she felt 4 people walk past her. Don't you know it's impolite to ignore your guests, especially when you're the ones who invited us over, a cold voice said, not muffled in the slightest by the horrifying mask that covered it. In the dim light, shadows danced over the masks, making them seem more frightful and leering. The ninja were strongly reminded of the dungeons back at the Leaf, though this place seemed slightly more depressing. Mrs. Weasley couldn't help herself, she fainted. Mr. Weasley started forward when he saw his wife's eyes roll back, but stopped when one of the masked men thrust out a hand, quicker than lightning, and grabbed her arm. The wizards could only stare as the tallest one with the mask that looked like a dog effortlessly picked up the unconscious woman with one hand. Now Mrs. Weasley would be the first one to tell you that she had more meat on her bones than most. She was happily plump, but the man was lifting her up with one hand, as if she weighed no more than a rag doll. Where do you want her? The one in front asked. He was a bit shorter than the dog-masked one, his blonde hair showing slightly around the edges of his mask. He had not even turned around, not even a muscle had twitched since speaking to the assembled wizards. Could he tell what had happened from just sound alone? Arthur ran forward and pulled a chair from the table in the center of the room and gestured towards it. The dog-masked man walked to the chair and placed her down gently before moving himself back into his position. As Arthur fretted over his wife, an uncomfortable silence settled over the room. The shinobi glared at the wizards, although they could not see it due to their masks, they felt the weight of their gaze. The wizards just stared in awe at the legends before them. Never had any of them ever thought they would live to see a ninja. Tonks remembered when her mother told her bedtime stories about them, that if she wasn't good, their hunters would come after her. Power was etched into every line of their bodies. Their black clothes and silver armor just added to the image of power. They stood at ease, she thought the military term was. Their feet shoulder-width apart and their hands clasped behind their backs. Not a hair out of place or a muscle twitched. She glanced sideways at Moody and Snape. Snape had turned a few shades paler when the ninja appeared, like wraiths from the shadows they glided into the dim light. The old floorboards didn't even creak as they had moved. Even when the Ana had caught the woman, they did it silently and with ease. Not a movement was wasted and now, they were stuck in a stalemate. They stood, most likely waiting for a debriefing or orders. Dumbledore had discussed with them the military dictatorship they lived by. Just wait till they met the wonders of democracy, they will never want to leave. Moody had removed his eye. He couldn't take the strain of looking at their power anymore. Usually he could get a grasp of someone's ability by how brightly they glowed in his magic vision. These ninja, just the one in the front had blinded him. He lit up the entire room. Looking at all four of them would rob him of his eyesight forever. It was Sirius who finally broke the silence. "How did you manage to get in here without triggering the alarms?" he demanded once he got his voice back. He had been stunned into silence when the four had appeared behind Molly. It was the one in front who spoke. "This level of infiltration is human at best. It took longer than we would have liked due to some very old scanning spells that are still active, but this sort of thing comes to us naturally." Casting another glance over the room, the ninja kept going. "Where is the one named Albus Percival Walford Brian Dumbledore?" The wizard stood, slack-jawed. They found getting in headquarters easy. Just how good were these guys? "How do you know one of us isn't Dumbledore?" the deep voice of Kingsley asked. Although the wizards didn't see it, the ninja all tensed in anger, all with the same thought running through their minds. Again with the tests. "We were the squad assigned to protect our Hokage at the time of the meeting between the two. We know who he is, but where is he is what I'm asking." "Dumbledore isn't here at the moment, he has pressing business elsewhere. Meeting hired guards is not the top of his to-do list," Snape drawled, over his shock at seeing the ninja and trying to remain aloof. Naruto frowned behind his mask. They were not mere guards. At the minimum they were diplomats from a foreign country, how dare they be treated as such? It took all of his training under the 5 cages to not explode at these wizards. "Well, if we are not important enough to fit into his schedule," he hissed, anger seeping through despite his efforts, "our contract with him states we are to only receive orders from him and he would have some form of communication with us. Which one of you are second in command and can give us this information as well as debrief us on the situation, our targets, location, enemies' forces and skills as well as any other factors you deem important enough to tell the hired guards." The wizard's visible recoiled at the hostility in his voice. Sirius frowned, didn't Albus tell them that they were battle-hardened warriors? Why did they continue to test them like this? Stepping forward, he decided to end all the mind games. "My name is Sirius Black and I am the owner of this establishment," he said, striding forward with his arm outstretched. Naruto stared at it for a moment before remembering this was one of their customs, to shake hands when greeting somebody. Sensing no ill intent, he placed his hand in his and gripped it gently, he didn't want to hurt the man. Sirius struggled to keep a straight face as a grip like iron encircled his hand. This man was strong. Shaking the man's hand he stepped back, not wanting to endure the grip much longer. The one in front was slightly shorter than him, but he could see bright blue eyes staring back at him. Eyes full of painful memories and hardened with battle. These were wise eyes. He was interrupted from his observations however when Snape walked up beside him. "I have the information to give to you, but no one here is in command. We deliberate and choose the best possible outcome by majority vote," he stated, handing over a roll of parchment. "Let them see the wonders of democracy, not the ironclad law of a dictator." To his surprise, it was one of the ones behind him who answered. "It sounds inefficacious. How are decisions made quickly? Especially in a time of war, a ranking system or hierarchy is needed. Letting everyone have their say sounds ideal, but that's just what it is, idealism." The voice almost sounded bored, but the way he held himself screamed alert. Inside Snape was scowling, inside, Naruto was laughing. "Gotta love having Shikamaru on your team." Naruto read the scroll or parchment as they called it, quickly. Memorizing it, he handed the scroll to Kakashi, who burned it instantly with a small fire jutsu. Whispers broke out at the act of magic without a wand, call or even a hand gesture. Dumbledore could do magic without a wand or naming the spell, but he still needed to use his hands to direct the magic. "Why did you burn it?" Snape demanded. The leader had had it for only a few seconds before it was burned. "Don't the others need to read it?" Naruto stared him down from behind his mask. Although the full effect was lost, he was sure the man could still sense it. "I am squad leader. Any information may create a paper trail and must be destroyed. I will give my subordinates the information necessary to complete our mission. I have memorized the orders given to us by Mr. Dumbledore. We will begin immediately. For ease of communication we will tell you the names by which to call us. You will only see me patrolling, but do not make the mistake of thinking I am the only one here. You will not be able to see them, but my squad will always be watching. We are the best of the best. We will do this mission that was agreed upon, even though the method used was disgusting and dishonorable, and we will succeed, as our Hokage commanded us to. The wizard stared at the squad of highly trained killers with fear and awe. Obviously their leader didn't feel the need to hide how their arrangement came about, which meant that they were unwilling to be here, but their Hokage, was it? Ordered them to complete their mission, so that meant they would write. The members of my squad are Dove, a man stepped forward into the light. The wizards memorized his mask and hair, for it was the only way to tell the difference between them. He is our scouting specialist. Nothing, animal, human or magic will be able to get past him. At that the man vanished. The wizards looked around, fear making their necks nearly crack at the speeds in which they turned. I told you, you will not see us. The man with the spinning eye might, but I advise against it. You are unused to viewing our special type of magic. The wizard stopped trying to find the missing ninja and instead stared at Moody, who had his magic eyeball out of its socket and was rubbing his forehead. How had they known he could see through walls? Next is Deer. The one with the bored-sounding voice stepped forward, his hair was styled in a way that looked like a pineapple. He is our team strategist. He will plan every move we make and counter every one of the enemies. Once again, the ninja vanished. The slight gust of wind the only indication he was there. Og, the man who caught Mrs. Weasley, stepped out. His hair must have been held up by an entire bottle of hairspray. Combat specialist and magic expert. Has fought through more wars and battles than any of us. The masked man left, leaving only the blonde-haired one. I am Fox. Team leader as well as diplomatic influence. It was debated that a person with enough political power behind them come on this mission to avoid any misunderstandings. I speak for my team as well as my leader, the Hokage, and all the cages of the 5 great elemental nations. I speak for the elemental nations. The wizard stared at the man before them. They had just made a strong political move. To send someone with the support of the entire ninja nations behind him would make things difficult in trying to get them to stay. Know this, wizards. The man's voice brought them back. The way you have acted in the only 2 encounters between our peoples for the last 100 years is disgusting. We are an honor-bound people and we hold your values in high esteem. You people have come to us, asked for our help, and have resorted to using trickery to gain our aid. Not only that, knowing this was an already delicate situation, you decide to make us jump through hoops to make sure we are worth your time. May I remind you that it was you who came to us. Cease with these immature and pointless trials. We will do this mission, do not worry. But your actions have destroyed any sort of alliance between our 2 worlds. Naruto's voice was quiet, but it struck the witches and wizards like a physical blow. Any and all information you have on your enemy will be required, as well as the location of each of your quarters and the quarters of the ones we were hired to primarily protect. Some wizards' heads hung in shame, unable to meet the fierce gaze of that mask. Snape was sneering, and Soraya was growling lightly. And what kind of position do you have to demand such things from us? Sirius snarled, outraged at this stranger for demanding things from him in his own house. I am Fox, leader of this mission, the masked man replied stonily. That is all you need to know and all you will hear from me. Mr. Dumbledore will be informed of my position in my world, but whether or not he decides to discuss it with the like of you is not my business. I am here to guard the boy. Not to prove myself to you people or play nice. Angry silence descended on the room before a chuckle broke out. Now Mr. Fox, is that any way to talk to your employer? The wizards whirled to see Albus Dumbledore standing in the grate of the fireplace. Just as their shocked gazes landed on him however, he was surrounded by the missing guards, each holding a kunai to various vital points on his body. Dumbledore froze as he felt the cool metal prick his skin, his face however, did not show the fear he felt, instead continued smiling warmly at the room. Og, Deer, Dove, stand down. At their leader's commands the weapons were sheathed and the ninja stepped back before disappearing. The assembled magic people were confused as to what just happened, for only a few seconds had transpired. Feeling the absence of the sharp metal on him, Dumbledore strode forward, the very image of wisdom and confidence. He stopped in the no man's land that had appeared between the 2 arguing parties and silently studied the ninja he had hired. Even with the mask, he looked younger than his guess of about 40 that the best must be at. The skin was smooth and with no scars, hair was a sunny shade of blonde, without a hint of gray. This man must be exceptional to have made it to Anbu captain as young as he has. He put his age around late 20s, early 30s. The Hokage of Konoha had given him the credentials and achievements of the leader, and it impressed him that much more if he was barely 30. He smiled brightly at the masked assassin. "Now Mr. Fox, is there a problem with your mission?" he asked pleasantly. Naruto was instantly reminded of being scolded by Iruka-sensei back at the academy. "No sir. There is no problem. Please address me as Fox," he replied back in the form one does to address a commanding officer, though rather stiffly. "Well then, Mr. Fox," Dumbledore continued, ignoring Fox's request. He needed to show some authority. "I shall introduce you to the order members assembled." "No need to sir. We have sufficient intel on each member assembled. We did our homework." Naruto grinned behind his mask at the jab. The man deserved it. He was sure Dumbledore remembered the conversation he held with Tsunade. If the comment bothered him then he did not show it. Instead he turned to the members of the order once again. "My fellow witches and wizards. We are extremely lucky to have these visitors from the legendary elemental nations with us to guard and protect us from Voldemort and his followers. Mr. Fox here is quite capable in his own right, isn't that so?" Naruto clenched his teeth. The man was giving out way too much information. Did he not know that there could be traitors or cowards amongst his ranks? Intel was what decided wars. And this man was making a stupid move just to annoy him. He was going to have to be careful with what the old man heard or read. They did not need the entire world knowing they existed. Ninjas worked in shadows. They lived and breathed in them, their villages were their only respite from it. They did not need every wannabe world ruler knocking at their door trying to get them to follow their cause. Mr. Fox is the next in line to become the ruler of the Land of Fire, the most powerful and prosperous land in the elemental nations. He is also the son of one of the previous leaders, as well as been trained by their most powerful and influential figures. Dumbledore smiled at Fox, somewhat triumphantly. He had done his homework well. The assembled crowd stared at the boy. He was practically royalty. Ignoring the stares, Naruto looked at the man who had hired them. He was not to be underestimated. He guessed that the man would do whatever it took to make sure the enemy was destroyed. He was one to be watched. Using the slightest of hand movements, he summoned a clone, hinged as a fly, and had it land on Dumbledore's shoulder. It would be best to have the man followed. "If there is nothing else sir, I would like to get on with our job," Naruto said coldly, bowing slightly. Yes, I wouldn't want to delay you from your work. This is unfortunately the last time I will be able to meet with you before the new term starts, so for now you are to watch the boy and protect this house. When you leave for the train you are to guard the students, and when you arrive at Hogwarts, you are to guard the Shall and its grounds and then meet with me before the welcoming feast. Is that clear? Naruto straightened from his bow. No doubt this was another test of their skills, to see how far he could go before breaking. Well, the man was in for a surprise. "Giving a clip sir." Naruto vanished as well, leaving only the wizards in the kitchen. The Anbu guards had decided to set up shop in the attic of number 12 Grimmauld Place. It was relatively spacious, the majority of the area being taken up by boxes and crates full of things the ninja didn't want to know. There was no light, they didn't need any to see by. Having honed all their senses, the lack of sight was not uncomfortable. "What is our overall impression of these wizards?" Naruto's question was open to anyone to answer, but more directed at Shikamaru. He was the brains. "They're frightened of us. That much is obvious. These little tests they are giving us are not to actually test us, but to give themselves the illusion of control over our actions. They want us to see they are powerful and clever and most likely better than our leaders," the deer masked man said tiredly. Things like this were so troublesome. "How are they planning to convince us that their rule is better than the one we live by?" Niji asked, his eyes active, watching the house whilst they conversed. "My guess would be this democracy government. The people have the power. Utterly senseless in a time of war, which we are trained for. I think they plan to glamour us away from the elemental nations by saying we have the power to decide how the government is run." Kakashi snorted. "They don't realize that back home, we do practically assist in our Hokage's rule. That's another thing I've noticed, these people do not have any prominent female rulers. The queen of the non-magic community is a mere figurehead, they have a board of people who actually make decisions. They see females as inferior here. If they discover our leader and ruler is a woman, might make them see us as a lower regard. Also our age." Shikamaru explained. "The coming of age in the magic community is 17, but they still attend school, so they are not truly classed as adults. Here you are not an adult until 18 or 21 in most cases. Did you notice that they excluded the children in their discussion? As well as the meeting with us. Revealing our faces will undermine our positions as they will think us unable to fill our roles due to our youth." "Except for me," Kakashi smiled. "I may not be as old as the majority of them, but if they require one of us to take off our masks, I will do it. They shouldn't complain and insist the taichos comes off. In their society, age means would be incomprehensible to them that someone a decade younger than me is my superior. This whole mission sucks. Naruto grumbled. The lack of nature chakra worried him, as well as concern over his home. This whole mission didn't feel right. He understood it was an incredibly important international issue, but he would much rather be fighting on the front lines. He wanted to face them. 3 years later and the wounds were still as fresh and raw as if they had been inflicted just minutes ago. He was a broken man, but he hid it well, for the sake of his team, for the sake of his loved ones, for the sake of the village. I think I hear something, Kakashi said, effectively gaining everyone's attention. It is the Potter boy. He is having an argument with 2 other children. I assume they are his friends, the Granger girl and youngest Weasley boy. They are drawing the attention of the others excluded from the meeting in the kitchen. Dove replied, watching as the weak chakra networks of 3 other children joined the 3 that were arguing with his Byakugan. I shall send out my clones and have them henge into ordinary items and insects. A couple shall be in each room, so that'll save us having to patrol and focus on information gathering. Dear, you shall set up camp here and collect the information my clones give you. I'll leave one here so it can receive information, and you'll have a shogi partner. Shikamaru grinned under his mask. He may not say it often enough, but he would rather no other as captain of his team. Naruto made sure the mission was done as well as the comfort of his team. He thought that he would be stuck up here, bored, going through all the books and reading material they could get their hands on. But with his clones, it made filing the most important information so much easier. Dove, I want you to keep an eye on our primary target and its colleagues. Their every move I want reported to me. Dove nodded and settled down, closing his eyes he focused on his targets. That's all they were to them, targets. They had learned long ago not to get attached and personalizing their objectives. It causes way too much damage if a mission fails, or if they are ordered to assassinate them. Dog, you're with me. We shall be collecting information from hard copies. We will be hitting each room one at a time and grabbing every book we can find. Use a genjutsu or henge another object to replace the ones we take, so our client isn't aware of what we're up to. Dog nodded. His Sharingan made it easy to collect information. All he had to do was glance at a page with it activated and the information was stored away in his head. Of course, being a prodigy and a genuise, he did have photographic memory and could remember every little detail of everything he came across in perfect clarity. It made ambushing or pranking him so much harder for Naruto. Remember, this is a double objective mission. We fill out the parameters set by Dumbledore as well as the reconnaissance mission given to us by the cages. If any trouble arises, alert me immediately. Each of you will have a clone with you at all time to receive any messages I wish to send. This way our communication cannot be intercepted by enemy or temporary ally. Kakashi smiled proudly at his former student. This method was one of the reasons their squad was so efficient. Naruto had honed his shadow clone jutsu to an unbelievable level, requiring no hand signs and no calling of the name that the vast majority of people needed to do to focus their chakra. Using the clone's ability to remember any information it sees and once dispersed, transfers it to the original and any other clones made, he had made the perfect communication system. Each clone would receive information from a dispersed clone, and the clones with the group would receive it. For the group members to send information back, all they had to do was tell their message to the clone, and the clone would make another and disperse it immediately, transferring messages instantly and with no threat of enemies hijacking their information and either reading it or tampering with it. It was an ingenious use of the Jounin level jutsu, and no one but Naruto could pull it off. Fox, Dove interrupted Rutley. The wizards have concluded their meeting and are converging in the hallway. Fox nodded, not seeing the importance. Our target is moving towards them, trying to be silent. My guess is in hopes to overhear something. From the way the wizards excluded them, they must know nothing about us and probably very little about the war. Fox scratched the back of his head. A habit, Shikamaru noticed, that indicated he was thinking. Change of plans. Dog, whilst they're occupied, go and gather information from the rooms that have been left unattended. Dove, you go with him, I'll set up my clones and then head out. Dog, you're with me. We'll trail the young wizards and see what we can overhear as well. If the older wizards are paranoid enough, they might think the younger ones are enemies and try to attack them. I'd rather not fail this mission when we've barely started. Fox sighed. Seriously, why did these wizards have to make life so hard for them? His team nodded in affirmation of their orders, and at once, they all disappeared. Fox and Dog watched as the red-headed one stopped his companions on the landing outside of the room they had just exited. He carefully looked over the banister at the hallway below that was packed with witches and wizards. They were whispering excitedly, no doubt from the recent visit from them and Dumbledore. In the very center of the group, the man named Severus Snape was talking with their employer, Dumbledore. The reaction of the Potterby was interesting. Countless emotions flashed across his face, starting with shock, then relief, the bewilderment before finally settling on anger. The boy's hands were curled into tight fists and his body was shaking with barely repressed rage. The two ninjas noted this reaction down. A thin piece of flesh-colored string descended from the two boys that were standing on the landing above Potter and his friends. They were lowering it down too slowly though, because all the witches and wizards began to move towards the open front door and out of sight. "Damn it," they heard one of the identical red-haired boys say as he pulled the string back up again. Both ninjas decided to investigate that string at a later date. The Ambu watched as the younger trio moved towards the door, where three of the magic users, Remus Lupin, Nymphadora Tonks and Mrs. Weasley, who had obviously recovered from her fainting spell, were waving those sticks around and from the looks of it, resealing the many locks and bolts behind the wizards who just left. "We're eating down in the kitchen," Mrs. Weasley said to the three as she met them at the bottom of the stairs. "Harry, dear, if you'll just tiptoe across the hall it's right through this door here." Crash. This answered a question that had been nagging at the back of Naruto's mind for a while now. Why everyone was so quiet in the hall, resorting to hushed whispers and careful tiptoeing. As Molly Weasley chastised the Nymphadora woman who had just knocked over an umbrella stand, an ear-splitting screech filled the heavy velvet curtains that were hanging in the hall had flown open on their own, revealing a horrific woman. The life-size portrait was alive, and the woman with a black cape was screaming as if she was a victim of a bicky. Her blood-curdling screech echoed throughout the house. The drooling, wide-eyed woman continued her banshee-like shriek and instantly the other member of his squad were beside him. Naruto was tempted to clap his hands over his ears, his heightened senses suffering under the onslaught of the woman's piercing screams. Two of the wizards darted forward and each grabbed the curtain and tried in vain to close it. The woman cursed at them in that horrible nails-on-a-chalkboard voice. The ninjas managed to understand a few of the woman's words over the Tonks woman apologizing, the grunts of effort from the two magic beings, and the yells of the other portraits, who had also awoken as soon as the woman started screeching. Filth. Scum. Byproducts of dirt and vileness. Half-breeds, mutants, freaks, begging from this place. Naruto tuned out. He had heard the same thing said to him, over and over, when he was younger, he did not need to hear it now. The Weasley woman abandoned her attempt at closing the curtain and instead ran down the hall, shooting what seemed to be a red light from her stick that silenced the other portraits. On closer inspection the individuals in the portrait seemed to have been knocked unconscious. They must investigate the different types of spells this world had. As the ninja watched, the serious man came charging out of the door opposite the Potter boy. Grabbing hold of the side of the curtain that the woman abandoned, he yelled straight back at the screeching woman. The old woman's eyes bulged and directed her insults at the black man. The ninja watched the muscles of the two men straining as the curtain refused to close. Naruto came to a decision. Now would be the best time to reveal myself to the Potter boy. Plus this screeching is giving me a migraine. Him knowing I'm here will make it easier to watch him and easier to gather information. I also want to find out why he doesn't like Dumbledore. His team was silent for a moment, each thinking over the pros and cons of such an idea. A short time later, they all nodded in agreement, somewhat reluctantly though. They were not in the habit of revealing themselves to the ones they were meant to watch, this would make it easier to keep tabs on the boy, especially once they head to this Hogwarts. Naruto grinned and shunted it down to the people in the hall. Sirius struggled to close the velvet curtain over his screeching mother. The old woman was as stubborn as hell. Opposite him he saw Remus struggling to close his side of the curtain as well. It seemed the woman was determined to be heard this time. Need some help. Sirius turned too fast and lost his hold on the curtain, the resultant flaring made Lupin lose his grip as well. The heavy drapes, free from the force trying to close it, billowed out as if a fierce wind was blowing through the house. The woman screeched in triumph and her voice doubled in volume. Sirius glared at the fox-masked ninja. Thanks to him distracting them, it would take at least 4 people to get the curtains closed. Ignoring the glares of the exhausted wizards, the ninja walked up to the portrait. The woman paused momentarily in her screaming, examining the newest person to desecrate her beloved house. Identifying him as no one she knew, she continued her ranting. If this went on for much longer, Naruto swore his ears would start bleeding. Grabbing either side of the curtains, he drew them shut smartly, without any visible effort whatsoever. Sirius and Lupin gaped at the display of strength. This was the power of the ninja. They would have to be careful around them. Remembering that his godson was standing behind him, Sirius swept his long, dark hair out of his face and greeted him, as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. "Hello, Harry," he said. "I see you've met my mother and Fox." Harry stared dumbly. "You're my dear old mum." "Yes," said Sirius. "We've been trying to get her down for ages, but we think she put a permanent sticking charm on the back of the canvas." "Why is a picture of your mother here?" "Oh, you don't know. Well then, let me welcome you to the ancestral home of the noble House Black." Sarcasm practically dripped off his words. I'm the only black left, so it's mine now. I've lent it to Dumbledore to use as headquarters, the only useful thing I've been able to do." Resentment was heavy in his godfather's voice, so Harry decided to change subjects. "And who is Fox?" Harry asked, pointing to the blond man in the strange mask who was studying the portrait. "Boy, what do you think you're doing? Do you want her to wake up again?" Sirius demanded of the ninja. The man ignored him and continued studying the curtains and picture. Examining the portrait, Naruto could sense the strong, sticky-like chakra at the back of the canvas that was gluing it to the wall. The dampening chakra that kept the portrait quiet was just strong enough to hold it back. Any loud noise, like the Nymphadora woman knocking over the umbrella stand, would awaken the screeching woman inside. He could sense some sort of barrier over the painting though, that would protect it from people who wished to destroy it. He whistled lowly. This was a stubborn woman indeed. Hearing the man whistle, Harry took the time to observe him. His clothing was strange. And he thought that wizards dressed weirdly. The black pants were slightly baggy, but bandages held the loose ends of the hems close to his skin. His skin-tight, sleeveless shirt was covered by a strange kind of armor. And on his left shoulder that had been left bare, a symbol was etched into his skin. "Do you want the woman taken care of?" the man asked Harry's godfather in a seemingly casual voice, as if asking him for a cup of sugar. Sirius stared. He could actually remove the powerful charm that kept his mother there. He could be bluffing though, or trying so show off his strength. Narrowing his eyes, the last member of the Black family nodded. Receiving the go-ahead, Fox removed what seemed to be a knife from one of the holsters that was strapped to his thighs. Harry stared at the weapon in amazement. It gleamed in the dim lighting, making it look sinister and deadly. If he knew who the man was, he would know it was the traditional weapon of their trade. The kunai adopted a light blue glow as Naruto channeled chakra through it. It was one of the special Nunai knives which had the seals on it that enabled them to cut through chakra strings. Lifting the back of the portrait gingerly, he swiftly cut through the sticky chakra. Sirius watched open-mouthed as the man was able to lift the portrait centimeters of the wall. No one, not even Dumbledore, had been able to budge that painting an inch. The knife he had drawn had started to glow a soft blue. Then, quicker than his eye could follow, sliced down the gap between the portrait and the wall. Sirius sensed the magic that held his mother's painting attached to the wall disappear. Using inhuman reflexes, Fox caught the painting as it fell to the floor. As he pulled it from the curtains, Sirius winced in preparation of his mother's screeching, but as the canvas was pulled out, he heard it. Nothing. His mother's painting no longer held any magic. It had been turned into a common Muggle painting. The image was still, and he was surprised to see his mother's portrait. The woman was smiling. He had never seen her smile so softly. It completely transformed her face. Her eyes, no longer bulging and rolling in their sockets, had a spark of light in them. Her skin, no longer drawn taut due to her constant frowning, was smooth and unblemished. Her hair, no longer fraying and limp, was decorated in an elaborate hairstyle that framed her face. This was his mother. It took him a few seconds to realize that Fox was handing the portrait to him. Taking it with incredible care, as if it would explode the second he touched it, Sirius accepted the painting. Unable to form a proper thank you, he mumbled something about needing some time and shuffled into a room further down the hall, leaving Harry and Fox alone on the landing. Are you part of the order?" Harry asked tentatively to the silent man. The man turned to look at him. Well, he thought it was at him, it was hard to tell with that mask on. "No," the man said after a while, before turning on his heel and walking in the direction of the kitchen. Harry hurried to follow, he was starving. Following his silent guide to the bottom of the steps and through a door, they entered the basement kitchen. Naruto's lip curled inside his mask. The only thing that had changed in the cramped room was the table had been strewn with scrolls and other bits of paper. The wizards probably brought them after they had left. Why were they hiding information from them? The husband of the woman who fainted and one of his sons had their head bent over one such scroll. A cursory glance told him it was the plan of a building. Interesting, he thought. They had already started with skirmishes against the enemy. The building must have some importance. Mrs. Weasley stood at the stove, cleared her throat loudly. "Harry," Mr. Weasley said, hurrying forward and using his body to block the boy's view of the table. The wizard nodded in greeting to the silent ninja, who tilted his head in acknowledgement. When they properly assessed the house, his team would have that information, so there was no point to reading it now, other than to ruffle some feathers. The boy who was conversing with Arthur hurriedly snatched the blueprints off the table. But not before Harry had a glimpse at the maps. Naruto watched as the Potter boy processed this information and keep it to himself. Obviously he knew asking about it would get him nowhere. Harry ignored Mrs. Weasley scolding her husband and her son about the parchment left on the table, instead he focused his attention to the man dressed in black. He stood about a head and a half taller than him, was thin, but he could see the muscles rippling under his skin-tight shirt. Deciding to stop the inevitable explosion from Mrs. Weasley whilst also getting his curiosity satisfied, he voiced his question. Who is he? Team Alpha had settled into their routine and life in general at number 12 Grimmauld Place. Naruto had a minimum of a half-dozen clones in each room, hinged into everyday, ordinary objects that kept surveillance 24/7. Clones, hinged into flies, mosquitoes and other inconspicuous insects, followed every person in the house that wasn't a part of the Anbu squad. Neji kept vigil over the perimeter over the house, as well as discovering the many hidden places the wizards had stashed information about their efforts. When he had to rest, clones patrolled the perimeter, but they did not have the effectiveness of the Byakugan. Shikamaru was designated information organizer. Each of the wizards had written their own notes and opinions about Harry and Voldemort, and the lazy ninja had the task of separating fact from fiction. The Ronald Weasley child had quite an imagination. When Shikamaru needed to take a break, a clone would become his shogi partner. It was relaxing for him, and it was tactical planning training for Naruto. Kakashi was responsible for compiling a profile for each of the members of the order, as well as learning as much about the magical world. Spells, curses, magical animals, which the 5 great ninja nations didn't already possess. He had already discovered what could possibly be a Boggart and a curtain full of doxies in the same room, as well as what was called a hippogriff in one of the upstairs bedrooms. He shivered when he remembered that this was the clean version of the house. Harry and the other children attending Hogwarts had a slight disagreement with the idea of protection through this year and the following few. That was an enormous understatement. The twins had complained loudly and expressively. They were of age, why did they need protection? Since Fox was the only visible guard, he was the focus of their pranks. Rather pathetic pranks in his opinion, but then, he was the master. Ron and Hermione had debated furiously, Mrs. Weasley ended up having to resort to grounding them. Ron without his chess, Hermione without her books. She wanted her books bad. The symbol that was carved into their guard skin triggered a memory and she was determined to figure out who this person was. Both had been subdued quite quickly. Harry had protested loudly, saying that these guards would have no chance against the Dark Lord, and then he descended into a furious silence. Refusing to talk to anyone except Sirius and the others who were to be guarded. And even then it was short-clipped answers. He had attempted to overhear conversations and meetings, but the imperturbable charm had been perfected, so no sounds whatsoever left that room, and the flesh-colored strings that the twins had invented, extendable ears, had no chance. The ninja had commandeered a few of these for the research and development department in Konoha. They would come in handy in the future. The days flew by, not quickly, but faster than Harry would have liked. Before he knew it, it was the day of his disciplinary hearing. Today he would stand before the ministry and argue his innocence, and if he failed, he might be expelled from Hogwarts forever. He lay in his bed, turbulent thoughts swirling in his mind until, unable to continue thinking about it, he jumped out of bed and put on his glasses. Stumbling around the room slightly, he found his freshly washed jeans and shirt. Fox Naruto watched from the shadowed corner of the room. He wasn't even putting any effort into hiding, the dim light of the barely rising sun and the boy's already unfocused mind allowed him to remain unseen. The previous night they had been visited by their contractor. Dumbledore had explained the situation with the Potter boy. And that they were strictly forbidden from escorting him to the hearing. Needless to say, they were very annoyed at this new order. Their mission was to guard the boy. How could they do that if they couldn't follow him or even be in the same part of town as him? Explaining this to the old bearded man had no effect on his decision though. The hearing was to take place at the Ministry of Magic. Dumbledore wished that the Alpha Squad remained secret from the local government for as long as possible. The Leaf Ninja agreed this was a good solution. They hated dealing with local police and law enforcement. They made unnecessary demands and restrictions, not to mention the fact that this government would most likely use everything in its power to try and get them to remain in this world for the sake of their little war. Understanding Dumbledore's reasoning didn't mean they agreed with the situation. Before any more protests could be voiced however, Naruto agreed that the Potter boy will go to the ministry without an Anbu escort. Dumbledore thanked them and then left. Instantly Naruto could feel the gazes of his team on him. What? He said we couldn't escort Potter into the ministry, our contract did say that we were responsible for the other individuals that are residing here. Plus, we won't be escorting him. We will be on a recon mission for our country. We will just happen to do this on the same time and day that Potter has his trial. He could still feel their gazes on him and heard Shikamaru sigh. He grinned, we're ninja. Going into a super top secret enemy government base is what we do for a living. Troublesome. And so, as Harry opened the door to the kitchen, it was to greet the alert and wary faces of Mr. and Mrs. Weasley, Lupin and Sirius. The tension-filled silence was broken by the creaking of the kitchen door as Harry opened it. Mrs. Weasley immediately started bustling around the kitchen, making breakfast for the boy. Sirius went and stood behind Harry and placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. At least, it was meant to be comforting, the grip was a bit too strong to be moral support. Sirius was forbidden to go, he was a wanted criminal in this society, charged with a crime he didn't commit but unable to prove otherwise. Lupin and Sirius kept talking to him, reminding him to behave and giving him advice and reassurances about the hearing. Mr. and Mrs. Weasley were both silent, each lost in their own thoughts. As Naruto watched the uncomfortable atmosphere from the shadows, he made a clone. The clone was to remain at the house, so Dumbledore would think they were still guarding the place whilst Harry was away. He sent the clone into the kitchen. Silence fell about the group as the guard entered the kitchen. Harry watched as the fox-masked man walked up to Sirius. "Mr. Dumbledore has requested that we do not accompany you to the ministry today." The tense silence was replaced with shock. "He what? Why?" demanded Sirius. He didn't like the guards that much. They were too quiet, too shifty to be able to trust them fully. But they were strong and very, very skilled. Removing his mother's portrait without any effort was proof of that. He felt slightly better when he thought that these powerful people would be protecting his godson when he went to the hearing. He wishes that our presence and purpose remain hidden from the officials of this world and feels that this is the best option. We will remain here, watching over the building, and wait for your return. With that he turned and walked out the kitchen. The room was left stunned. Mr. Weasley checked his watch. "Nothing we can do about that. Harry, it's time to go," he said. Harry nodded and dropped his barely eaten toast. He couldn't eat with his stomach full of butterflies. "How are we getting there?" Harry asked as he grabbed his coat. "Well, I usually apparate into work, but I thought today we would take a nice walk," Mr. Weasley mumbled, grabbing his coat. Mustering up a half-hearted wave, Harry said goodbye to Lupin and Sirius and left Grimmauld Place. "Targets have left base and are proceeding on foot." A crackly voice spoke to him through his wireless headset. "Understood, confirm positioning, dog, deer, dove. Over," he commanded. He was in his element. Finally a break from the monotonous patrolling and information gathering. This was what he excelled in, what he was born for. Reconnaissance, breaking into enemy bases, the fear of being caught and the adrenaline when you succeed. Blending and working with shadows. Knowing that what you're doing will be vital in your overall mission and knowing that the people who you command trust you with their lives. This was ninja work. Dog. Hinged, civilian, following targets from side street, minimum 10 meters, maximum 20. Confirmed. Over. Deer. Hinged, cat, following targets from fence line, minimum 5 meters, maximum 10. Over. Dove. Hinged, owl, following targets from air, targets in sight, range of vision 2 kilometers. Over. Positions confirmed. Fox, no hinge. Following those shadows. Report every 10 minutes and if you lose sight of targets. When we arrive at location, convene on my position. Any suspicious activity, report to me before any action taken. Move out. Yes sir. Congratulations to Ron and Hermione. The new Gryffindor prefects. Mrs. Weasley celebrated. It was the happiest the ninja had seen her since they had arrived. It was the day before they were set to go to Hogwarts. Harry's trial had gone well. He was cleared of all charges and allowed to return to school. The recon escort mission had uncovered many things. The minister seemed to feel threatened by Dumbledore. These were the two main players in the Cold Civil War. Fudge didn't want to acknowledge Voldemort's return, which is the cause of the disagreement. After Albus decided to step in on Harry's behalf, the case was declared over. The minister seemed to be taking most of his advice from a woman who in Naruto's opinion looked like Gamabunta's descendant and a man who was most likely related to Orochimaru in some way. They both seemed to dislike Harry enormously. Their investigation was cut short however when Naruto felt his decoy clone dissipate. Dumbledore wasn't as trusting or as naive as they thought. Fox quickly made a clone and commanded one of the clones that were patrolling to reveal itself and his team hurried back to Grimmauld Place. Not before leaving a good number of clones, hinged, to continue exploring the ministry of course. Dumbledore had to accept their reasoning as he had no proof they weren't there. The book lists and prefects' badges had arrived that morning, causing much celebration and goodwill. The Weasley woman decided to hold a party, inviting most of the Order's members. As Moody walked in, Mrs. Weasley bustled over to him and took his coat. "Oh, Alistair. I'm so glad you could come. We've been meaning to ask you for ages, but could you check the writing table in the drawing room for us? There's something inside it and we didn't want to open it in case it was something really dangerous." Moody grimaced slightly and pulled out a case containing his glass eye. He had taken to not wearing it when he came to headquarters, the ninja's magic was everywhere and he felt like his head would explode if he looked at it for too long. "Sure, Molly." He popped his eye in place. Drawing room desk in the corner. "Yeah, that's a Boggart. Want me to take care of it for you?" Mrs. Weasley declined and started gesturing towards the party and proudly showed off her son. Moody removed his eye and walked up to Ron and started talking about jinxes and authority figures, mainly what happened when they met. The two eldest Weasley men came through the door and the party started. The ninja watched from the shadows. They had finished going through all the information that the Order's headquarters could offer them. All they could do now was watch over their targets and wait until tomorrow. Naruto had even dispelled his clones that were following the Order members around. Anything to prevent the boredom and laziness that came with doing nothing. His spy clones that had invaded the ministry had all dissipated when they tried to get into a specific department. He noted that if they ever got the chance to go back into the ministry, they would check out the Department of Mysteries. Naruto was watching Harry. Watching him, it gave him chills. He reminded him too much of people he would rather forget or kill. He knew the backstory of the child and knew the look of someone who wanted revenge. He hated that look. A photo was withdrawn from the depths of Alistair Moody's pocket and shown around the group. When it reached the Potter boy, his face instantly dropped. Harry got up and after giving a feeble excuse to the wizard with the magic eye, he left the room. Naruto nodded to his Shikamaru and Niji and silently left to follow the boy. Kakashi had followed the Weasley woman when she had left earlier. Naruto followed the boy up the stairs to the second landing. He looked deep in thought and somewhat disturbed. His concentration was broken however as he passed the drawing room and the sobbing noise that Naruto had been aware of ever since mounting the stairs became known to him. "Hello?" Harry ventured. There was no answer. Naruto silently and invisibly moved past the Potter boy and into the room. He took place in the shadowed corner next to Kakashi. He didn't need a report. What was happening was very apparent. Mrs. Weasley had decided to defeat the Boggart hiding in the dresser on her own and was losing. Harry walked in to see Ron's mother crying over his dead body. The ninja watched as the color drained from his face and he lost the strength to stand, falling to the floor. And no. Ridiculous. Mrs. Weasley sobbed. Crack. Ron Weasley's body turned into his father and Molly Weasley cried harder. Naruto and Kakashi looked at each other. A Boggart showed one's worst fears. Their mission was to protect these people from anything that could harm them, that included things that could cause them serious distress. Naruto materialized between Mrs. Weasley and the Boggart just as Lupin, Moody and Sirius burst through the door, drawn by the hysterical sobbing. The Boggart contorted. It started shifting into so many different shapes and forms. They all blurred and merged together. Harry watched stunned. A boy with jet black hair walked forward, his eyes were red with swirling black shapes in them. "You are no brother to me, Naruto. Mark my words, I will kill you." Harry couldn't understand what the boy was saying, but the hatred and malice in the words was obvious. The boy morphed and turned into a snake that lunged as it changed. Next the shape changed to that of a woman with bright pink hair. The snake's lunge turned into a seductive walk, the words whispered softly. "He means more to me than anything, than you. Naruto, if I kill you, he will love me. I am not sorry." Harry watched as the man named Fox seemed to stiffen, then tremble. Harry's focus then went back to the Boggart which was changing once again, this time the bodies were no longer alive. The woman with blonde pigtails was mutilated in the middle of the floor, the sight was so gruesome Harry couldn't look away, then a young boy with a blue scarf, a girl with purple eyes, a boy with red hair so many dead people appeared before changing into another. Fox was shaking now, the other ninja had appeared behind him, silent and vigilant. Why wouldn't they stop this? Harry turned to see the adults looking in horror at what was before them. They were too transfixed to think to stop it. Mrs. Weasley still had her face hidden in her hands, crying to herself. A maniacal laugh drew him back to the nightmarish scene unfolding before him. A man with bone-white skin and snake-like eyes stood in the center of the room. Fear flooded through Harry's body, this man reminded him of Voldemort so much. Skin started to flake away from his body, peeling back to reveal the black-haired boy with red eyes again, the laugh changed to that of the boy's voice. The Boggart contorted once again, so many fears this man had, which was the strongest which that one. The Boggart's form started to settle, as if it had just decided on the fear it wanted. Harry was left looking at a boy a little older than he was. No, this was no boy, this was a man. Cold, hardened blue eyes stared out of a scarred face framed with spiky blonde hair. A jolt went through him as he realized this was what Fox looked like without his mask. He was so young. In the corner of his eye he could see the adult wizards' mouths open in astonishment. Fox Boggart smiled triumphantly before the grin turned feral. Blue eyes bled into red and a red haze started to form around the body. 7 words were growled in plain English so all could understand. "I'm not strong enough, I will fail." Fox snapped to attention when the Boggart's nails started to lengthen and scars started to darken. "Destroy it, now." He commanded the wizards, his voice betraying nothing of the weak state he was in before. Released from their horror-bound stupor, the wizards leapt into action. Waving their wands and shouting the spell, the Boggart disappeared in a puff of smoke. Silence enveloped the room, broken only by Mrs. Weasley sobbing. Remus Lupin instantly went to her and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Molly, it was just a Boggart, just a stupid Boggart. I see them dead all the time." Mrs. Weasley cried into his shoulder. "In my dreams, all the time." Sirius and Moody were staring at the ninja. What they had just witnessed, they needed to talk to these ninja. Lupin looked up from Molly to Harry. "Harry, take Mrs. Weasley to her room. Calm her down," he said. Harry frowned. They were going to talk to the ninjas and wanted him out the room. He was being excluded again. "We'll let you know anything important later, right now Molly needs you," Sirius said, unusually firm. Harry nodded and helped Mrs. Weasley to her feet, muttering reassurances. As he helped her out the drawing room, he cast a look back at the room before the door shut firmly behind him. Lupin waved his wand and an imperturbable charm coated the room. Instantly the ninja went on guard. Shikamaru muttered troublesome under his breath. This had no good outcome. They were compromised. "How old are you?" asked Sirius softly, gaze intent on Fox. He couldn't be older than 20, but those eyes, they were the eyes of a man who has lived an eon. "I am 17 in October," Fox replied. Moody let out a little laugh. 16. 16. We are receiving protections from teenagers. What next? Infants joining the ministry? He asked no one in particular. Lupin stepped forward. "How old are the rest of you?" The ninja looked to Naruto before answering. He nodded. "I am 18. Replied Dove. 17, Deer sighed. 29 and 1 year, was Dog's reply. Naruto filed that away, he never knew how old Kakashi was. It was obvious he disliked naming himself 30. Who didn't? In their profession, not many ninja on active duty saw past 35. "You take orders from someone who is nearly half your age?" demanded Moody. "Why?" "He is my superior and designated team leader by my Hokage. I do what I'm told." "Why weren't you, who would have so much more experience and knowledge and maturity, be made head of the team?" Dog shrugged, "He's stronger than me." Moody opened his mouth again. "You forget." Fox interrupted before Alistair had a chance to speak. "Our culture and society is different to yours. What may seem wrong and abhorrent to you is normal and natural to us. You begin training your witches and wizards at age 11, yes?" he asked the 3 wizards. They nodded. "We start training to be ninja at 6. This means I have a decade of experience in my field of expertise, which is more than any of your students here and most of your members. I am also the next Hokage to my village, the most powerful and respected person in the village hidden in the leaves. Our lives revolve around fighting and warfare. Do not judge me on my age alone." His voice was firm and confident, with a hint of anger. Lupin let out a breath. He has a point. Heck, Harry defeated you-know-who when he was 11. You can't be suggesting we listen to this boy. They have shown they are more than capable, and Dumbledore trusts them, so we have no reason not to," Sirius put in. "I don't like it," growled Moody, seeing he was outvoted. "If you don't like it, you're free to guard the train, students, and grounds and Potter Boy by yourself if you like," the boy with the deer mask said lazily. Inside he was secretly glowing with pride. Naruto had grown so much. He handled that situation better than most diplomats would or could. Moody growled. "Fine. But your age will stay between us 3, 4 because Potter saw your face in the Boggart. Others will react worse than I have, and we can't afford to lose such powerful assets over a culture difference." "Speaking of the Boggart," Lupin said. Naruto stiffened, he knew this was coming. "What was that?" Naruto was silent, thinking before he answered. "My fears, my memories, my nightmares." "What did the Boggart mean?" "That is none of your business," he said coldly. "It has nothing to do with this mission and will not hamper or hinder us in any way. Now, the Potter Boy is returning, we leave it to you what to discuss with him." With that, the ninja blurred out the room. Sirius, Lupin and Moody just looked at each, all at a loss on what to do. Naruto didn't sleep well that night. Memories he would rather forget wove in and out of his dreams, turning them into nightmares. Countless time he felt a fist-coated and lighting plunge into his chest, countless time he felt a kunai slide into his ribs and then explode, and countless time the taste of pain, betrayal and loss burned him. A swirling red haze of hatred covered him, engulfing him. It took all of his willpower to resist and shove away the delicious taste of power and revenge that it tempted him with. He woke suddenly, sweat lightly dusting his brow. Years of intense training had enabled him to remain absolutely motionless as the last dregs of sleep left him and full awareness of his surroundings filtered through his senses, even from a sleep as turbulent as his. Niji was on watch, Shikamaru lay in the opposite corner, and Kakashi was watching him intently. He swore under his breath. "Nightmares?" his ex-sensei asked, lips barely moving, voice only heard by Naruto. "Nothing gets past you, does it?" Naruto said sarcastically, voice as quiet, if not quieter than Kakashi's. He didn't need to act in front of him. He was the one who knew the most about him, even how little that was. Kakashi knew how much past events had affected him. Does Tsunade know you are still having them? Kakashi asked, suddenly serious. Bach-an has enough on her plate to worry about without me whining to her about a few bad dreams. But they're not just a few bad dreams, are they, Naruto? No. Talk to me, you need to talk to someone. I talk to Iro-sennin all the time. Kakashi looked at him sadly. Someone alive, Naruto. Someone who can offer you comfort. Are you offering to comfort me, sensei? He said the term scathingly. The legendary White Fang, lending a shoulder to cry on. Didn't know you had it in you. What, feeling guilty for abandoning my training and nearly getting me killed? Kakashi frowned, that's not what happened and you know it. Stop blocking me out, stop being so angry at yourself. And how do you know I'm angry at myself, oh wise sensei? Naruto snapped, voice rising slightly. He caught Shikamaru snap his eyes open, waking from his slumber. The lazy ninja looked at the two, looked at Niji, nodded and then left with him, leaving former sensei and student alone together. The two barely noticed. The Boggart. Your worst fear is that you'll never be able to protect anyone. You'll never be good enough. I'm not good enough. Naruto exploded. His chest heaved with the weight and intensity of his emotions. Kakashi just stared at him calmly. Finally, the dam had broken. Iro-sennin is dead. Orochimaru is still alive. We are in the middle of the largest war to ever hit the elemental nations. Akatsuki is still after me and the two people who meant the world to me want me dead. I couldn't save Sasuke and I couldn't Sakurai, I couldn't even. Kakashi watched as the energy left Naruto and he sagged to the floor. The dog-masked Anbu gently put an arm around his shoulders. Tell me about the nightmares. He said softly. Naruto tensed and then slowly relaxed. Their memories mostly. Chidori and Sakura blossom over and over again. The fox is feeding off them, getting stronger from my negative feelings. Every time I relive the moments, the feelings of sadness and hatred, it makes him stronger. He fell silent for a few moments. I think he's trying something. Niji and Shikamaru had relocated to the basement kitchen and were observing the hectic commotion that was getting ready for school. They understood what was happening to Naruto. They had their own traumatic experiences and were helped through by close friends and family. But Naruto had no one. Those closest to him had abandoned or betrayed him in some way and all his family was dead. And his experiences, no one should ever have to go through what he did. Sure, he had friends, lots of them too, but no one he could really open up to about everything. Tsunade and Iruka were the only ones Naruto really talked to, but recently, with the war, it had been hard to get even a little bit of time to talk about his past. Naruto became an Anbu captain at 15. Youngest since Itachi Uchiha. He was still a genin at 14. He had eliminated every distraction and had risen to the highest rank of Anbu within a year. As far as they know, he even stopped visiting his favorite ramen store. He was purely focused on his work, to the point of obsession. They knew why. He needed to keep moving, keep distracted, and keep from thinking too hard about what had happened. When Jiraiya died a week after his promotion to captain, he almost shattered. Refusing to eat and constantly taking assassination and hunting missions. It was near impossible to put him back together, especially when the killer of his godfather and last remaining member of his broken family was his former crush, Haruno Sakura. The ninja were brought out of their dark musings by a scream. The two-leaf shinobi dashed to the source to see two trunks collide with the young Weasley girl. Her body was flung down the stairs by the impact like a rag doll. Her two elder twin brothers stood at the top of the stairs, wands out, looking down in horror as their little sister fell towards the first floor landing. Harry, Ron and Hermione had run out at the sound of a scream, the boys still half-dressed and could only stare as Ginny flew down the stairs. Niji caught the girl before she hit the floor and Shikamaru grabbed the trunks before they did more damage. The trunk struggled before Shikamaru cut the spell that bound it with the chakra-enhanced kunai they were each given. Landing lightly on the floor, Niji set the girl down and looked her over. She had a small amount of blood leaking from a cut on her head and she was unconscious. Looked like a concussion. Ginny. Mrs. Weasley screamed, running towards her youngest child. She took her daughter gingerly from the quiet ninja and started running her wand over her body. We need to take her to St. Mungo's. She said frantically. She needs to be examined. She can catch the train later. She muttered to herself. The teenagers that were looking from the second floor ran down to the falling girl. Niji and Shikamaru exchanged glances, though with their masks on, no one could tell but them. If the girl could not go with the rest of the children, this would complicate matters. Technically, they were to guard the Weasleys until they were on the train. If one of them wasn't, they still needed to be watched over. Damn. They would have to heal her here, but there was only one accomplished medic amongst them. Taicho. Niji said firmly. Instantly another ninja blurred into focus. The witches and wizards turned to look at the ninja, noticing them standing there for the first time, their focus on their sister the entire time. The younger ones took the opportunity to stare openly at the other guards that were there to keep watch on them. Naruto ignored them. Looking at the girl and listening to the report from his subordinate, he moved forward. Pulling his armored glove off, he focused the healing chakra to pool into his hand. Mrs. Weasley clutched her daughter closer to her as the fox-masked man approached her with his hand glowing green. What was he doing? I'm a medic, a doctor. I can heal her. The soft voice had a strange reassuring quality to her. She nodded her head and released her grip on her daughter. Harry watched as Fox put his glowing hand on his best friend's sister's head. It unnerved him. The color of his hand was the same color that had haunted him since the day he was born. It was the same color as the Avada Kedavra curse. The curse that had made him an orphan and a legend in one night. And still he forced himself to not call out a warning to stop the boy approaching her. Boy. Sirius had told him how old each of them were and how young they started training to be ninja, to kill. It had taken all of his self-control to not tell Ron and Hermione. He told them everything, well nearly everything, but if he knew Hermione, he knew she would create another version of SPEW, but this time for children being trained to be assassins. He kept that information to himself for now. Slight concussion, abrasion to the forehead, Naruto muttered under his breath. It was an easy fix. Pushing his chakra forward, he mended the brushing and sealed the skin closed. The assembled wizards watched as the injury disappeared and Ginny opened her eyes. The first thing she saw was a bone-white mask painted with blood-red lines in front of her. She gave a little squeak and tried to push herself away, only to find her mother, holding her firm behind her. A confused frown appeared on her brow. "Mum? What happened?" Mrs. Weasley burst into tears and hugged her close. All the time thanking Fox over and over again. Naruto nodded at the thanks and then turned to his team. He waved a hand that disappeared. "You will be late for the train," Naruto said, adopting his guardian position again. "Oh, my. You're right. Ginny, you go wait in the hall. I'll get your luggage. Boys, go get dressed and bring down your trunks, Hermione dear, you too and," her voice suddenly became menacing, "Fred and George. I'll be talking to you two later." An audible gulp was heard by all from the twins. As the students mounted the stairs, a slight breeze moved past them that made them turn around. Standing at the bottom of the stairs was Fox and three other ninja. Two were the ones that had saved Ginny, all were dressed the same. And standing in a neat pile was all of their trunks and bags. Sitting on top of his trunk, Harry saw his owl, sitting quietly in her cage. "You will be late for the train," Fox said again. That was some summoning spell. Harry didn't even hear an incantation, or see a wand or even see their luggage fly past them. Sirius was right. They may be young, but they were certainly skilled. Maybe he could get one of them to tutor him, so he had a better chance of defeating Voldemort. "Oh," Mrs. Weasley said, rendered speechless for a moment. Gathering her wits, she continued herding the children. "Thank you, Fox. That will help greatly. Boys. I told you to get dressed. Hurry now, we'll leave in 10 minutes. Girls, there's some toast in the kitchen for you." Employing her years of experience in handling a busy household, the children were dressed, fed and ready to leave. A ninja stood to the side as the Weasleys crowded the hall. Alistair Moody approached them. "We'll leave in a group. Tonks and I will be escorting the kids. You guys follow and keep a lookout. When we get to King's Cross, it's platform 9 3/4. Then you start your assignment guarding the train. You are to make no contact with the students. They may see you, but you are not to converse with them at all. Once you reach Hogwarts, talk to a man called Haggard. You can't miss him. He'll give you directions to the school and to where Dumbledore will meet you with further instructions. Understood?" "Understood," all the ninjas said at once. "Good. We leave now." Instantly the four foreigners nodded and disappeared. "Let's go, Molly. All of you move," Moody shouted down the hall. Mrs. Weasley wrenched the front door open and everyone spilled out into the chilly September morning. Weak sunlight filtered through the dense overcast sky, warming them only slightly. Moody slammed the door shut to number 12 Grimmauld Place. The door to the building disappeared, squashed between numbers 11 and 13. "Where's Tonks?" Harry asked, looking around as he stepped onto the street along with Ron and Hermione. "She's waiting for us at the end of the street," Mrs. Weasley said, leading the way. Safely hidden in the shadows, Naruto watched them greet an old woman with curled gray hair and a strange purple hat. "That is Nymphadora Tonks," Niji's crackly voice came over their headsets. "I do not know what kind of genjutsu she used, but it has physically changed everything about her except her chakra pathways." "Confirmed. Keep an eye on the target's dove. Dog, deer and I will start a rotation as we move. I'll take point, dog east, deer west. Every 5 minutes we'll switch counterclockwise, keeping a watch on perimeter. Dove, you focus on targets and examine anyone who comes within a meter distance. Alistair Moody has explained he will be keeping them away from the crowd, so there will be less people coming within that distance, so that should make it easier." "Confirm." "Confirmed." came the chorused reply. Naruto dashed ahead of the group, trusting his team to keep an eye on them and for the wizards to lead them in the right direction. They did not know where this train station was. It took them 20 minutes to reach King's Cross. The ninjas held back their awe at such a large place that almost rivaled the Hokage's tower and entered with the wizards. Hinging into average citizens of this world, they followed the magical group at a safe distance. They observed them as they leaned casually between the platforms marked 9 and 10. Naruto, unable to find the platform 9 3/4, instructed Neji to look with his Byakugan. Watching the witches and wizards fall through the seemingly solid wall confirmed his suspicions before Neji had a chance to speak. There is a strong Genjutsu barrier over the wall. It only allows those with chakra or magic to enter. That'll be where the hidden train is. These wizards have clever ways to hide themselves. Kakashi commented. And once again they didn't tell us about it, growled out Naruto. He was sick of the tests. He would bet his last Ryo that Alistair Moody purposely neglected to tell them the platform was hidden. From now on treat all information as either faulty or completely wrong. Only rely on facts we know as true. Understood, Captain. Good, now let's see what this train is and then we'll plan how to go about protecting it. Right. Using their speed, the Leaf Nin ran through the barrier, no one noticing them slip through the crowd. Instinct so deeply ingrained into their being didn't stop them from not bracing for impact as they struck the wall. Mildly surprised, though expecting it, they kept running. Coming through to the other side they were greeted by the sight of a Scarlet steam engine train, waiting next to a platform full of people. The platform number marked it as platform 9 3/4. They had made it. An elegant sign overhead named the train the Hogwarts Express. So the destination of it was clear. Smoke drifted over the heads of the bustling crowd. Cats of every color and species meowed to each other, owls hooted to each other from their cages, and the distinctive croak of toads could be heard. Students in casual clothing and strange black robes all pushed towards the train, each trying to find a place for their luggage and a place to sit. Unnoticed in all of the hubbub, the ninja slipped off to the shadows. There is just above 500 students here, judging on age. The others are most likely relatives dropping them off. Shikamaru estimated, gazing over the crowd. The train says express. That means it doesn't stop at any other places until its destination, Kakashi added, being the one who had to research the commonly used terms this world employed. So once it starts moving, no one will be entering or exiting the machine. Neji questioned. That makes our job a whole lot easier. These trains go fast, don't they? At Kakashi's nod, Naruto continued. That'll lower the chance of interception, though not outruling it completely. Okay, here's the plan. Dove, you'll be point. Stay at the front of the train and keep your Byakugan activated. If the train can't go over water, it must be on the country somewhere so the trip will take a few hours at most. I do not trust the letter Dumbledore wrote Bochan about timing and destination with everything that has happened since. Dog and Deer, you'll be patrolling the corridor, look for anybody that shows signs of killer intent. Remember, no talking to the students. It might be best if there was no side of us either. I will trail the Potter boy. He won't be with Granger or Weasley due to them having to do their own patrol of the train, so he'll most likely be by himself. I will be visible to ward off anybody who thinks he is alone. The chances of someone attacking in a public place are unlikely, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. He gazed around his team, silently looking for questions or ideas. Understood. Yes, sir. Move out. The whistle sounded. The sleek red train began to move. Students hung out their windows, giving last goodbyes to family members and friends. Young children, probably siblings of the students leaving, ran alongside the train until it had gathered too much speed and they fell back. Neji sat on top of the train, in front of the chimney, so the smoke didn't get in his face. As the train built up speed, his hair billowed out from behind his mask and whipped around in a frenzy, nothing like the intricate and delicate patterns the thick smoke was making in the air. Using his impressive control over his Tenketsu points, he glued himself to the top of the train with chakra and his hair to his back. He would not arrive at this potentially hostile place with his hair looking ridiculous. They had a reputation to uphold. And his team would never let him live it down. Adjusting his communicator more firmly on his neck so he would be able to communicate any dangers and make a regular report, Neji got comfortable on top of the magical train. Harry had never been so out of depth in his life. He had never traveled on the Hogwarts Express without Ron, and now he was in a compartment with the oddest combination of people. Ginny sat in a corner, talking cheerfully with Neville Longbottom, a fellow fifth-year boy who was also in Gryffindor. In the opposite corner sat a girl who Ginny identified as Luna Lovegood, a quirky, absent-minded fourth-year girl from Ravenclaw who could not stop staring at the other person in the small carriage. Fox, he had informed him that he would be personally escorting him while the other ninja patrolled the train. He didn't know how to feel about this. At first he was outraged. Everyone would be talking about him, whispering about him because he had a bodyguard. But as he walked the halls of the train he realized people were doing that anyway. The Daily Prophet had been slandering him all holidays, calling him an attention-seeking liar. He was used to people staring at him, but now there was something else in those stares. Accusation, disbelief, condemnation. He didn't like it, he was almost relieved to have Fox there, acting like a shield from the stares. Everyone stared at the strange man in a mask rather than him. And when people didn't get distracted by the ninja and continued to stare at him, Fox stepped in between the glares and Harry, so naturally and casually it was like it wasn't intentional. Harry didn't even notice he was doing it until halfway down the train when he noticed how much the blonde-haired ninja was moving. He never seen him move so much, usually whenever he saw his guard he was standing still, or a blur. Now his guard was sitting quietly in the corner closet to the door next to Harry. In his lap was Trevor the Frog. He had escaped Neville's hands once again, but for some reason sat contentedly in his protector's knee. Fox was stroking the back of the toad absent-mindedly. Harry thought he looked the perfect picture of boredom at ease. How wrong he was. Every muscle in Naruto's body was coiled like a spring. Ready to launch into action should the slightest motion make any attempt at his charge's life. The boy who had the toad, Neville Longbottom, seemed like a gift from the Sage of Six Paths himself. Frogs were natural sages, and what many people didn't know was that all toads are frogs, even though not all frogs are toads. Having a master of sage chakra sit in his lap, even if the creature wasn't aware of it as he was, he felt calmer and stronger than he had since he had arrived in this nature-voided city. He absorbed the nature chakra the amphibian naturally produced. He would be able to last the entire train ride, ready to spring into combat in a split second. Breathing in deeply, he focused his senses on the immediate surroundings, trusting his team to cover the hallway and exterior of the train. Longbottom was talking excitedly about some plant he had received. So great was his enthusiasm it drew both Potter and Lovegood into the conversation. Naruto looked at the plant. He had never seen anything like it. It looked like one of Gaara's desert plants, except gray, and was covered in what seemed to be boils rather than spikes. It pulsated slightly, giving the leaf nin an impression of some of the more grotesque jutsu his enemies knew, like transplanting diseased organs into a healthy body in seconds. A skill Orochimaru had taught his subordinates. Though the casters had died, the soldiers they infected suffered greatly over the next few days before he or Bachan could get to them, most didn't make, the rest wished they didn't. Naruto shook of darker memories just in time to see the Neville boy jab at the plant with a feathered pen. His sage chakra allowed him to move quicker than he normally would. Liquid squirted from every boil on the plant like an overripe pimple. Thick, stinking dark green streams of it hid everywhere. The ceiling, the windows and all of its occupants. The Weasley girl had protected her face in time with her arms and only had some on her head. The absent-minded one had put down her magazine and received a face full, and the Longbottom child was drenched. He tried shaking his head to get most of it out his eyes. Sorry. He gasped. He looked around and just noticed Harry missing. A soft thump made them all look towards the door. The scarily masked man had just released his grip on Harry, who was looking a little pale, but completely stink-up-free. At that moment the door of their compartment slid open. Still ready for an attack, Naruto discreetly palmed a kunai knife in his hand. Waiting for whoever was on the other side of the door to make a move towards his charge. Amongst the chatter rattling that was increased when their door opened, he heard the distinct voice of his ex-sensei. Non-threat. Naruto, being the only one in that room who could understand Japanese, relaxed his stance. A girl with long, shiny black hair was standing in the doorway. Her gaze was fixed on Potter. Hello, Harry," she said nervously, a blush creeping up her cheeks. When Harry heard her voice he spun around, not having noticed the door swing open or his guard easily handling a deadly weapon. "Oh hi," Harry said, his voice matching his face, at a loss on what to do. They stood there awkwardly for a moment before the girl muttered a quick goodbye and left, still quite pink in the face. Harry groaned and turned around to face his fellow students, who were suddenly incredibly busy trying to get the rancid-smelling liquid off them. "It's okay," said Ginny graciously, "there'll be other times." As for now, she pulled out her wand, not noticing the guard tense all over again. You wouldn't expect the younger sister of the boy's best friend to be an assassin, but when you come from Naruto's world, Naruto's life, betrayal was as common as clouds. "Scourgify," the girl cried. The stink-up vanished. Naruto raised his eyebrows, though no one saw it behind his mask. They may not be strong, but wizards had definitely got some useful little tricks. "Sorry," Neville said again to the girls. Seeing his seat free and clear of goo, Harry sat down, his guard following suit. He sighed and wondered when Ron and Hermione would be back to save him. An hour went by, filled with small talk and quiet silence, before the compartment door slid open again. Ron and Hermione, accompanied by Crookshanks and Pigwidgeon, slumped down on the empty seats next to Luna. "And believe that silly cow-made prefect," Hermione grumbled. Harry raised a brow. It was very rare to hear Hermione swear. "There are 2 prefects from each house," Ron explained tiredly. "Guess who Slytherin's is?" "Malfoy," Harry said instantly, of course he would be. "And Pansy Parkinson," Hermione hissed. "She's thicker than a conchus troll." Harry and Ron exchanged glance before both snickering. It was then Ron noticed the silent guard. "Oh, hello Fox," he said nervously. He didn't like the idea that his parents thought he was stupid enough to warrant a watcher, but they had saved his sister, so they couldn't be all bad, could they? Fox nodded a greeting before going back to petting Trevor, who sat happily in his lap. Hermione stared at this. The toad that hated humans holding it or staying in one place too long was sitting complacently in the lap of a stranger. It even looked happy. Did these people have some sort of affinity for animals? Harry glanced sideways at the ninja. It felt weird calling him a ninja. To him, ninja were people who wore black jumpsuits and ski masks and threw flimsy stars around whilst jumping all over the place. He hadn't told his friends a thing about what Sirius had revealed to him. He agreed they were scary and had some sort of special magic, a summoning spell without a wand. But ninja. He didn't want them to laugh at him. The compartment door slid open for the 3rd time. For the first time since meeting the wizards, did the ninja see the 3 friends turn with the same look of strong dislike on their faces to the people standing in the doorway. The one in the middle looked slightly familiar. The boy had a pale pointed face, and his equally pale blonde hair was slicked back from his face, making the smirking face more pronounced. Flanking his sides were 2 large boys that dwarfed the middle one. They had sneers on their faces, but their eyes weren't as sharp or as intelligent as the one in the middle. Naruto guessed they were hired thugs or friends the blonde boy had made for protection. "What do you want?" Harry asked aggressively, just as the pale boy opened his mouth. "Oh, angry are we, Potter? Maybe a detention or 2 will teach you manners." The boy drawled in a bored sort of way. Now Naruto knew who he was. This was the son of the snake-like man who was at the ministry. They had the same slimy air around him. He watched as the 2 exchanged insults, Harry being the victor. He tensed his muscles. "Just because you win an argument doesn't mean you won." Trevor croaked loudly when he stopped stroking him. Draco Malfoy, identified during the banter, turned his attention to the shinobi. His sneer became more pronounced. "Added another member to your freak show?" he said maliciously. Harry, Ron and Hermione exchanged glances. Hermione smiled. "I wouldn't tease him if I were you. He's Harry's bodyguard. He'd beat all 3 of you before you even drew your wands," she said smugly. Malfoy frowned. Only students were allowed on the train, but more importantly, he needed to show how much better he was than these losers. "Crabbe, Goyle. Show our friends here how wrong they are," Malfoy ordered. The 2 boys grinned, something they knew how to do and do well. Cracking their knuckles they stepped forward. The 4 witches and wizards who had seen the guard's power grinned as well. Neville was scared and Luna just observed dreamily. Naruto frowned behind his mask. The children were getting him to fight their battles for them. They did not understand the situation or how his world handled threats. He would have to show them. Blurring from sight there were gasps of pain and 3 bodies fell to the floor, all bleeding from their temples. An ominous silence descended. "Dog," Naruto said sharply. Kakashi appeared by his side. "Get the unconscious ones back to their carriage, make sure no one knows they've been knocked out. They'll wake up in a few minutes, I just put them to sleep." "Why are they bleeding?" Naruto could kill without leaving a chakra signature, let alone a physical wound. "To make a point," he growled out. "When you leave, place silencing seals around this compartment." "Hi, Captain." Kakashi nodded. Displaying inhumane strength, he picked up the 3 students and disappeared, door sliding closed behind him. Striking quicker than a viper, Naruto struck out at Neville and Luna. The 2 slumped unconscious in their sleep. The 4 remaining magical students felt the cold touch of fear. "Where is he taking Malfoy?" Harry asked numbly. "He is disposing of the bodies," Naruto said harshly. "Do you know what you have done?" "What we have done?" Hermione shrieked. "You just killed 3 people. Because of your stupidity," Naruto growled. "We are here to protect you from danger, not to fight your battles for you. You think it was clever, baiting him to attack me? Goading him to strike? I am not your attack dog, I am your guard. Anyone who provokes me or shows aggressive signs toward you will be treated as a threat and eliminated." "You thought Malfoy would have killed Harry?" Ron asked incredulously. "I mean, yeah, he's a git and needs a good punch in the face, but he wouldn't kill him," he trailed off as the bone-white mask faced him. "Anyone will kill anybody if they believe the reason is right enough," his voice was soft, with well-concealed pain. "When someone attacks me, I will retaliate with deadly force. Do you understand now? This is not a game. You taunt and provoke people into attacking me or you, I will do my job. It is what we were hired to do. Do you understand?" he demanded. The three wizards nodded numbly, faces white with shock. These people were insane. Dumbledore hired these murderers to protect them. What was he thinking? Harry was stunned by how different these ninjas were to what he thought. He would have to tell Ron and Hermione, but when they were alone. Who knew what these killers would do if they overheard them? I will patrol for the rest of the trip. Do not leave this compartment until we arrive. His voice was steel and it kept them nailed to their seats. Turning swiftly, the shinobi opened the door and slid it shut. Unnoticed by the wizards, 4 glowing seals detached themselves from the corners of the room and drifted to the floor. A stunned silence filled the room, only broken when Luna and Neville woke with soft groans. Rain spattered the windows in infrequent bursts, as if it couldn't get the energy to really pour. The sun broke through the cloud coverage a few times, its weak light illuminating the countryside for mere moments before being swallowed up. The sun made a final appearance, and darkness fell, the lamps inside the train lit up. Harry sat with his forehead pressed against the glass, straining to get a glimpse of the distant Hogwarts. "We'd better change," Hermione said. The first words they had uttered since the episode earlier. Each of them lost in their own thoughts and feelings of guilt, fear and accusation. As they struggled into their robes, the train began to slow down and the usual racket as everyone scrambled to get their luggage. Harry looked longingly after Ron and Hermione as they disappeared into the crowd. Being prefects meant they had to supervise the students leaving the train. Leaving the train, he felt the sting of the cool night air on his face, smelt the pine trees that lined the path to the lake. A deep feeling of satisfaction filled him. He was home. All that was missing was the familiar call of Furziers over ear Furziers. But instead was a different voice. A brisk, almost strict voice was calling for the first years to assemble. A swinging lantern shone its light and revealed Professor Grubby Plank, temporary care of magical creatures teacher. Beyond her he could see the huge outline of Hagrid, standing quietly to one side, away from the surge of students juggling their luggage and pets. Harry was confused. Seeing Hagrid was one of the things he'd been looking forward to most, but seeing him stand quietly was so strange to him. As the crowd thinned, he saw the reason why. The ninja were standing around him. He was talking to them quietly. Some sort of agreement must have been made because the ninja nodded and Hagrid left. Filing that away to discuss with Hagrid later, he turned and made his way to the 100 or so horseless carriages that would take all the students, except the first years who traveled by boat, across the grounds and to the castle. He was acutely aware of the ninja trailing the swarm of students, following them. Harry kept a lookout for Ron and Hermione, but had to stop and stare. The coaches were no longer horseless. Some creature, half horse half dragon, stood between the carriage shafts. They had no muscle mass at all. Their black coats clung tightly to their skeletons, outlining every bone in their bodies. Their heads reminded Harry of the dragons he fought last year, and their eyes were pure white, no pupil visible. They were also dragonish in the sense they had giant black wings sprouting from their withers. The wings seemed like they'd suit bats, but they were folded and rested comfortably against the backs of the creatures. They stood so still they could be mistaken for statues, but in the darkness and flickering lights of swinging lanterns, they just looked eerie and sinister. Then as one they all raised their heads and stared right at him. Or past him he should say. The white, staring eyes gazed directly at the ninja, who in turn had their masks trained on the beasts. The clamoring of the students died slightly as those closest to the ninja realized there was more than the one they saw on the train and that they were making their way towards the closest carriage. Ron and Hermione appeared behind him, frustrated looks melting off their faces as they stared in curiosity at the ninja. Fox was the one that approached the horse thing. Its empty white eyes stared back at him. Slowly he raised a hand and placed it on its muzzle. The air around them shimmered. All the students stopped and stared at the display. The horse's blank eyes were suddenly full. Beautiful black eyes stared at Fox. The thing nipped at the ninja's hand, revealing viciously sharp fangs that should not belong in the mouth of a horse. "What is he doing to the cart?" the breathless voice of Hermione asked. "The coach?" Harry asked in confusion. "He's petting the horse thing that's pulling it." "What are you talking about?" Ron questioned. "I'm talking about that," he said, gesturing towards the ninja stroking the nose of the thing and murmuring softly to it in a strange language. "Harry, he's touching the air and making it shimmer," Ron frowned. "Maybe they're using a detection charm to see what kind of magic pulls the coaches," Hermione guessed. Naruto stepped back from the beautiful creature. They had made enough of a scene. As his hand left the beast, the shimmering faded and the gorgeous liquid black eyes of the horse once again returned to their blank white. He couldn't help himself, and his fellow shinobi couldn't either. These were creatures born from tragedy, and their presence was so strong in their senses it was almost overwhelming. The power they also sensed housed within their bodies, especially their tails, was incredible. The wizards must have some form of power if they have trained a herd of these magnificent beasts. "Taicho." The cool voice of Niji broke through his admiration. Even the stoic ninja had an undercurrent of awe to his voice. He nodded. They were to meet Dumbledore before the children made it to the castle. No doubt this was yet another test for them, this time to see how quick they were. No need to show them their physical prowess. Forming a seal in their hands, the ninja shunted it to the castle doors. Hundreds of students watched the strangers disappear in the blink of an eye. Immediately the students erupted into speculation, none higher pitched than Hermione, her busy hair flying everywhere in her incredulities. They apparated. They can't apparate. They're on Hogwarts grounds. Hogwarts. A history specifically said that you cannot apparate on school grounds. Her rant was cut short when her sense of duty kicked in. Students were milling about, no one was getting in the coaches. Grabbing Ron by the arm, she dragged him into the thick of it, yelling at students to get in the carriages. Harry stood numb. He needed to talk to Dumbledore. "You want us to reveal ourselves to the entire school?" Fox asked incredulously. "Yes, I want you to show off your most powerful techniques too," Dumbledore ordered calmly. "Do you even understand how a ninja works? We deal with shadows, in secret, behind closed doors. The less people know about us the better. Any information you can keep from your enemy is a victory. How do you not get this?" These people were so stupid. Fox thought angrily. Wars were not won by people showing off flashy moves and revealing their trump cards at the start. "I understand your concern, but that is not the only war I'm fighting, as you've probably figured out already if you are indeed as good as they say," smiled the headmaster. "That is not what we were hired for. We are here to protect the boy and the students, eliminating anybody that we deem a threat. We are not your pet dogs to fight your battles for you. If you have a disagreement with someone, that is your issue. We are here to protect our cage's honor. Which means you must honor the terms of the contract. If I said that certain people within the ministry mean to cause Harry harm, you would have to see them as a threat, but I would rather cow them into submission before they get to the stage of a threat," the old man said pleasantly. The ninja stared with wide eyes at the school teacher. The man had all the makings and beliefs of a dictator. Regardless of how pretty he was making it sound, he wanted to destroy all enemies before they had a chance to oppose him. They were instantly reminded of Danzo, a man who had tried to kill off their beloved third Hokage and wrestle leadership away from, only to achieve his dream and then be killed by none other than a traitor. Ironic. Dislike for Dumbledore grew until it was bordering on hatred. There were a lot of things they were willing to do to protect their Hokage's honor. The second Dumbledore asks them to do anything they weren't willing, well, he just better not for his own health. The ninja nodded, albeit grudgingly, and vanished. They would be obedient. For now. The entrance hall was lit brightly with blazing torches, and echoing footsteps of students making their way to the great hall filled the room. A starless black ceiling hung above the heads of the students as the 4 longhouse tables slowly filled up. Up in the rafters of the ceiling, behind whatever genjutsu that showed the night sky, the leaf shinobi gazed down at their charges. "There is more than 500 students here, dear," the bored voice of Kakashi spoke. The deer-masked Anbu scratched the back of his head. "There were roughly 500 on the platform. Others could have been on the train already, I guess. That doesn't make up the numbers here. There is almost 1,000. There must be another way to get here or students were here already. We have to protect 1,000 students. What a drag. And teachers also, as well as patrolling the grounds, all of the grounds. You're talking about that forest and that lake. There were sentient beings in those areas. Some of them were very strong." Naruto's mind was already calculating a systematic way of investigating all areas of the school, as well as protecting the students. "Something is wrong with my eyes." Instantly all attention shifted to Neji. He was staring at a wall, his Byakugan activated. "What's wrong?" Naruto asked, his voice forcibly calm. "It's not my eyes exactly, it's this place. It doesn't make sense. The space on the inside is larger than the outside. Just looking at the outer walls makes my head hurt from the overlapping images. Then some of the rooms keep disappearing, or the interior changes. Items are appearing out of nowhere only to vanish. Forms of chakra keep making items and then completely vanish. I can't keep track. Then there are these strange chakra signatures floating around. They have no form, no life force, but the chakra is still there. And the castle itself. It's alive." "What do you mean alive?" "Well, there are lots of jutsuses that are ingrained in the building itself, there are seals everywhere, and there is chakra running through every brick. But the chakra has its own mind. It has its own network. There is a room that it all centers on, its heart maybe. The castle is sentient." The pulsing veins on the side of his head disappeared and the dove-masked ninja sagged. This was serious. It took a lot to make Neji show any signs of exhaustion. Naruto was instantly kneeling by his side, running a green hand over his eyes. He felt a throbbing headache and willed it away. "Very well, do not use your Byakugan inside the castle walls unless you feel it is absolutely necessary. For now, we shall perform for the crowd, then rendezvous with Dumbledore and start our primary mission." "Understood." "Hi, Taicho." As the ninja had conversed, the sorting ceremony had begun. This had been described to them when they arrived at the castle. The youngest children who belonged to no house will be divided into the house that suited them best. There were 4 houses, each with a different quality they take in. And each year the magical hat would sing a song, welcoming the new students. But the song the hat sang was quite different. It spoke of trouble ahead, as well as advising everyone that they needed to be united. Naruto noticed a frown on the woman in pink. He recognized her from the hearing. It was the woman that reminded him of Gamabunta. She was still wearing clothes of a shocking pink. Her pouchy eyes glared at the hat. When the hat finished its song, mutterings broke out across the hall. Only to be silenced by a glare from the severe-looking woman. One by one the new student walked up to the chair the hat was seated on and divided into their houses. Naruto thought of the hypocrisy. The hat preached unity but divided them. Once the students were seated, Dumbledore clapped his hands and food appeared upon the tables. The ninja stared. The summon that many objects at once, without seals or hand signs, showed a high level of skill. That was the castle. It responds to the old man. Neji clarified. Naruto frowned, and even behind his mask Neji noticed. I felt it appropriate. I will stop when I reach my limit. Do not worry, Taicho. Naruto nodded and they settled down to watch and wait while the students finished their feast. As the food disappeared and the volume level of the room started to increase, Dumbledore stood. Instant silence flooded the room. He commanded respect everywhere he went, observed the shinobi. A short welcome started his speech off. Warnings from the caretaker as well as the introduction of 2 new staff members. The toad woman made a speech of her own. Ninja were trained to read the hidden meanings and everything. They easily got the message of the ministry interfering in Hogwarts. That answered some questions they had. They had been informed the school was out of government control, obviously the government didn't like that anymore. Naruto watched Dumbledore closely. Everyone else may be fooled by his smart posture and alert face, looking like he desired nothing else but to listen to the toad woman, Umbridge she introduced herself as, talk. But he saw the way his eyes had a fire of anger and then a twinkle of mischief with an air of smugness. He also had the feeling they were going to be used as a part of this power play. The woman rambled on, losing the attention of most of the students. When she finished she found no one was paying attention to realize she had stopped. Dumbledore started the clapping, rousing the bored, distracted students into following his lead. Thank you for that illuminating speech, Professor Umbridge, he said whilst bowing to her. Now as I was saying, due to recent events I have enlisted some extra protection for the school. Umbridge looked up sharply. Naruto almost grinned, obviously she didn't know about them. This elite group will be patrolling the grounds as well as the corridors. They will also assist in the enforcement of the school rules, along with Mr. Filch. Now I understand that some of you may be dubious or even scared of these people, but I urge you to not be afraid, they are here to protect you. Whispers broke out over Dumbledore's last sentence. Hired protection that they would be afraid of. Allow me to introduce Fox, Deer, Dog and Dove. Showtime, Naruto said, and they each disappeared. Students' heads twisted and turned, each trying to get a glimpse of the guards. Harry, Ron and Hermione were also interested on how the guards were going to appear. A gust appeared, swirling around in a circle on the dais next to Dumbledore. Leaves, picked up by the gust, swirled around thickly, and soon, a mini tornado was spinning gracefully. No one questioned where the leaves had come from. The Great Hall was always impeccable when it came to cleanliness and mysterious when it came to magic. Everyone was captivated. In the center of the windy column, 4 shadowy figures could be seen. Suddenly a glowing blue nimbus appeared and the wind and leaves were exploded outwards, revealing the 4 guards. They stood straight, hands clasped behind their backs. Feet spread shoulder-width apart, power exuding from them in waves. The flickering candles cast shadows upon their porcelain masks, making them appear even more sinister. A hushed silence filled with awe descended on the hall. The teachers all looked scared. Umbridge looked like she was going to explode with rage and cower in fear. Dumbledore smiled, a hint of satisfaction in the quirk of his lips. Our estimable guests come here from a place not very well known and give us their protection. I hope you all make the ninja of the elemental nations welcome. Chaos erupted. Protests of disbelief were thrown around, accusations of Dumbledore's mentality cruelly yelled out. Shock and fear causing slight hysteria with many of the students. Harry stared at the mayhem wide-eyed. The wizarding world knew about ninjas. And what they knew was obviously big from the reactions around him. Ron had paled so much his freckles shone a bright red. Hermione was staring at the guards, mouth open and gaping like a goldfish. Naruto surveyed the room disapprovingly. This was why their origin was best left secret. Now they had to deal with public panic as well as guard the population against threats. He needed a way to calm the situation down, whilst also showing they were who the headmaster claims they were. Which could cause the students to fear them even more. Deer, stop them. He commanded quietly. The deer mask shinobi nodded and crouched down. running through the familiar hand seals with ease and muttered quietly. The Jeshabari. Shadows exploded from his feet. The teachers who were still seated behind them paused in their arguing and watched, fascinated and fearful. The shadows split into 1,000 lines and attached themselves to the feet of every student in the hall. Instantly the angry yells of confusion turned into cries of shock and fear before the shadows stretched themselves up from the floor and blocked their mouths. Harry was frozen in his seat and couldn't move even if he wanted to. The shadow holding him had a peculiar feeling about it. He couldn't feel it on his skin, but he could feel the power stopping him from moving. It frightened him. Against their will, every head in the great hall turned to look at the ninja. The fox-masked man stepped forward and the other two crouched, joining the one who was using the spell to hold them. The three on the floor each held their right hand clenched in a fist across their chests. They were saluting the man who was still standing. "My name is Fox and I am the leader of this squad," the standing ninja stated. His clear, strong voice carried easily in the silent hall. "We have been hired to guard these grounds and all who dwell within them against any threat. We will assist the caretaker in upholding the rules of this establishment. We will not interfere with your daily activities and we ask you leave us to do our job. Any source seen as a threat to the well-being of any student will be immediately eliminated without hesitation." He paused and gazed around at the faces of the students, seeming to pin each and every one to their seats. "We are ninja of the Hidden Leaf Village of the Land of Fire. I assure you that most of your facts about us are grossly misinformed, but do not test us. We are not here to answer your questions or play nice. We are here to guard you and keep these grounds safe." Naruto stepped back in line with his team as they stood back up. Dumbledore cleared his throat. The shadows that were binding the students released themselves and disappeared without a trace. Not that it made a difference, they were still rooted to their places anyway. "Thank you, Fox," Dumbledore said, his easy smile still on his face. "Now that introductions are over it is time for bed. Rest those minds so that they are ready for all the learning you shall be doing over the next semester." From the Narutoverse, if you haven't noticed, I've changed the storyline. But if you seriously haven't noticed then child, get yourself checked cause there is something wrong with you. So if you've read Harry Potter and haven't seen Red Naruto all you pretty much need to know is that Naruto is a ninja, no shit. Ahem, Anijin Churiki, human sacrifice, he holds the 9-tailed beast within him. There are 9 of them, keep up now, he had a bad childhood because of it. Was on a team of 3, with Kakashi as their sensei. Others of his team were Sasuke Uchiha and Sakura Haruno. Sasuke, being the emo bastard he is, left in pursuit of his brother, Itachi, who murdered his entire clan family. None of the other kids liked him. Naruto had become best friends with Sasuke and so his leaving kinda screwed him up. Cry, there is now war on between all the major ninja nations due to another insane want to rule the world guy, blah blah blah, it's okay, I'll get to that in the story. So everyone keep your pants on and knickers untwisted, you'll figure stuff out later when I decide you can. Cause you know, being the author and all I have total control over what I write and another perk is I know what's going to happen so muhahaha, suffer my unannounced plot turns and twists, suffer. All hail Jashin. Harry didn't get to catch up with Hermione until the next day. Hermione and Ron, being the new prefects, had to show the new first years where the Gryffindor common room was and other prefecty stuff. He would have joined them if the first years didn't look so terrified of him. The Daily Prophet had been busy labeling him as insane since he appeared clutching Cedric Diggory's body during the Triwizard tournament 2 months ago. As soon as he left the hall, the whispers of the students changed topic to him. He had gone to bed early that night, unable to deal with his fellow Gryffindors and their gossip. The morning didn't get much better for Harry. Seamus Finnegan, a fellow 5th grader and one of his friends since first year, had refused to share a dormitory with him. The situation escalated quickly before Ron stopped it, reminding them all he was a prefect and that things were staying the way they were. Harry wondered how much more he would have to take. People avoided walking near him and even paused in what they were saying and waiting for him to pass before resuming their conversation. Angry and depressed at the same time, Harry joined his 2 closest friends for breakfast. Naruto watched the Potter child emotionlessly, hidden from view by the ceiling that was a miserable cloudy gray today. The wizard situation mirrored his childhood a little too closely. But the boy had one thing he didn't have when he was younger. Friends. It irritated him to see 5th graders snap at his friends. Didn't he know how lucky he was to have someone? So he shut down his emotions. They were useless anyway. Did nothing but betray you. The dark-skinned girl with braided hair interrupted the 3 Gryffindors' conversation and started talking excitedly about something called Quidditch. Naruto made a note to speak to Kakashi about it. A whoosh nearly took him by surprise. Nearly. He returned his kunai to its rightful place calmly. And observed the source of the noise. Owls, hundreds upon hundreds of owls came through the upper windows and swooped over the students assembling for breakfast. Naruto eyed the packages suspiciously. They had, of course, already scanned every owl and the items they were carrying, but it never hurt to be cautious. A Tawny landed in front of the Granger girl, one of the newspaper owls. A concept completely alien to the military shinobi. The Potter boy adopted a scathing look as he observed the girl start reading. To which the young witch replied, "It's best to know what the enemy's saying." Naruto was surprised. The girl was intelligent, slightly. Too bad the boy didn't appreciate her reconnaissance and decided to then attack his breakfast with a small amount of bloodlust. The Weasley twins had approached their main target now, just after the stern-looking professor handed out sheets of paper. Most likely their schedule. He would have to commandeer one of those, their employers not having offered them one. The conversation wasn't interesting from Naruto's point of view. They didn't talk about their enemy or the government influence or even Dumbledore. Something about exams, owls, newts and how people broke down because of them. These people broke down over a lizard. They needed better priorities. He supposed he had better keep an eye on the twins and their experiments. They were meant to be helping the caretaker uphold rules, and creating tablets that made you sick to get out of class was most likely against the rules. The inner prankster that dwelled within Naruto congratulated their ingenuity. The inner ninja was irritated at the extra work. A small whoosh next to him signified the arrival of one of his subordinates. Identifying the chakra signature revealed it was Kakashi. Report. Hi. Have mapped out the castle. We will begin on the grounds as soon as the students begin their classes. Anything interesting with the castle? Where do I start? A total of 48 rooms are protected by portraits that require passwords. We were able to infiltrate 12 of them as they are used by students, teachers and those house elf creatures. The other 36 were determined to be rooms used for safekeeping. The stairwells move according to a pattern Dira is figuring out now. Each floor has a minimum of 9 secret passages, including the lower levels. The dungeon goes down roughly a kilometer and spreads out about 5. Many rooms and corridors are no longer in use. The secret passages were going to be useful, it would take some effort though to memorize the entire map of the school, but it's what they were good at. Kakashi kept up with his report. One corridor in particular snagged Dove's interest. It's on the 3rd floor. There are various traps and riddles that run through it. Oh, and a very large 3-headed dog. Naruto's head snapped round to stare at the dog mask beside him. A 3-headed dog. He had met one of them in his lifetime, and it was the summoned creature of pain, an Akatsuki member. Not just any Akatsuki member, the Akatsuki member. The one with the Rinnegan. It has a scar between its shoulder blades, from what looks to be a giant Tanto blade. Kakashi continued. Naruto's mind hit hyperdrive. One of Akatsuki's summons is here. Does that mean magical creatures are somehow linked with the shinobi world? More importantly, he could use this to close in on Akatsuki. He would have to work out the details, but a plan was forming in his mind. He needed to talk to Gamabunta. This mission had just paid for itself. His team would keep quiet about this discovery until they knew how they could use it to their advantage. Kakashi couldn't see his captain's face, but he could imagine the intense thinking look on it right now. He remembered the first time he saw that look. It was when he was trying to describe Catra to him. He looked at his pupil sadly. Oh, how much could change in a mere 4 years. Anything else of importance? Naruto asked his former sensei. The 3rd floor would be the ideal location to set up base, as students tend to avoid it completely. The 4 separate houses have some sort of competition between them. Winner is the house that has the most points at the end of the year. Good behavior gets points, bad behavior subtracts. They all seem to take this competition very seriously. Naruto snorted at the absurdity of it all. That's what they deemed important. A meaningless competition. 1st and 2nd floors hold mostly classrooms. Teacher's staff room is located on the 1st floor. 3rd floor holds what I assume is the castle's hospital, as well as more classrooms, a trophy room and a room full of armor. 4th floor holds their library as well as a few secret rooms. 5th has a bunch of fancy bathrooms and many unused rooms, and the house of Hufflepuff is situated there. 6th floor holds teachers' offices as well as their sleeping quarters. 7th has the Gryffindor house that extends into one of the towers, as well as a curious room that changes its interior to match what the person needs. It's the highest floor of the castle and leads to many of the towers, one of which belongs to Ravenclaw as well as the headmaster. The dungeons hold classrooms as well as the Slytherin house. The west wing of the castle. Enough. Naruto interrupted. The dog mask was staring at him, but he could swear his former sensei was grinning at him. I get it, geez. The place is big. Mark down the most commonly used places and paths and the important ones and ones of interest on a map. We'll work from there. Well, that's where we have a problem. Problem? We've been trying to draw up a map, but whenever we make more than 2 lines connect, the ink slides right of the page or just turns into something completely different. In a book called Hogwarts. A history, it tells that the castle is unplottable, meaning unless you have some connection to the school, like being a student or a teacher or have made an agreement with the headmaster, you cannot record anything about this place onto a map. Well, that makes things difficult. Naruto said bluntly. Understatement. Ahem, the Sharingan user cleared his throat. There are 142 staircases at Hogwarts. Wide, sweeping ones. Narrow, rickety ones. Some that led somewhere different on a Friday. Some with a vanishing step halfway up that you had to remember to jump. Then there are doors that wouldn't open unless you ask politely or tickle them in exactly the right place, and doors that aren't really doors at all, but solid walls just pretending. Even Albus Dumbledore, current headmaster, has been known to say, "Even I would never dream of knowing all of Hogwarts' secrets." Naruto stared. Quoted that, did you? Yes, Taicho. So the most powerful, complex and intelligent thing we have met since entering this world is a castle. Most probably. We're being outsmarted by a powered-up building. It appears so. I think my pride just died. So did ours, Taicho. So did ours. Wait, even its own inhabitants have never found or mapped out all its secrets. Not that is known by any of the documents in Arcadia's knowledge or the library they have here or the teacher's own personal collections. Awesome, research a way to go around this unplottable thing and make a map. Use the chakra paper made for the reconnaissance teams and Chunin exams. Place seals on every corner and then every 5 paces along the wall so that when an object moves we are alerted and the map can alter itself. I'll probably have to create the seals myself, edit the beacon seal maybe. Either way, then we'll know more about this place than they will and my pride will survive. Kakashi grinned. He had a smart student. Right away, Taicho. Naruto turned back to the Great Hall as Kakashi shunted to the other members of his team. He caught the trio of 5th graders that were his priority getting up to leave for class. He groaned internally. Maybe he should have swapped with Kakashi and made the map and let him sit through the boring lessons. Listening to lectures was one thing he was well experienced in, but never listened to. Tsunade and Iruka would willing and eagerly back that statement up. Cursing himself for being responsible, the captain of the Anbu squad followed their high-priority targets whilst the rest of his team dealt with the lesser important tasks. Kakashi appeared next to Shikamaru, who was currently staring down at the massive staircases from the rafters. There was never a moment in which all were perfectly still, there was constant motion. The Nara airs hard flew down a scroll, filling it with writing that Kakashi only barely understood. He must have made a shorthand code to help him with his analysis. How's it going? The silver-haired man asked his younger teammate. Their dear masked teenager sighed. Troublesome. There are 23 staircases in this section, which is fewer than the others, but I still can't find the pattern. I'm close, I think it might have something to do with the students on the bottom level and either the positioning of the sun or the time of the day, but I need to double-check my theory before I can actually apply the system I assume the castle is enforcing to the structure. So good then. Yeah, more or less. How did Taicho take the news? He came up with an idea on how to make a map, but we will hash out the details when he's finished tailing the targets. That's good. Memorizing this place would be way too troublesome. I'm surprised he didn't argue with tailing the kids though after you gave your report. Kakashi got a very cold chill down his spine. Oh shit. Shikamaru dropped his ink brush. You didn't tell him? He asked incredulously. He interrupted me and then we made the plan with the map and shit. Which floor is the history classroom on? Shikamaru demanded, standing up. First floor. Classroom, 4F. Why the hell is a classroom on the first floor called 4F? The Nara yelled, making the hand sign for a shunshin. How would I know? I don't know what they're thinking. Shut up and move. A heartbeat later they had vanished, leaving the rafters empty save for an ink brush and a scroll full of notes and equations. Inside the small classroom there was no place for the Leaf Nin to conceal himself without using chakra. Knowing he was going to have to either edit or create a whole new seal, both processes taking a large amount of chakra, Naruto decided to lean against the back wall, partially consumed by shadows. Keeping the amount of clones he had active was no small feat, and any chakra he could save would be helpful. As soon as his figure was discovered by the students, fearful whispers broke out over the classroom. Students pointed and stared, Naruto ignored them. Take your seats please. We will begin with the history of the Troll War, an eerie voice floated over the excitable students. Naruto froze. A ghostly figure floated through a bookshelf at the front of the class and proceeded to the pedestal on the dais. The ghost wore an old English-styled suit. Its colors faded beyond perception, and the overall hue was a milky white. Through the specter, Naruto could see the wall beyond. Niji said he could see chakra systems around the castle, but ghosts. An irrational fear took over him, freezing him to the spot. Ghosts. One fear he had never been able to conquer. Never beat and never understand. He could deal with missions that involved massacring families, hunting traitors, espionage, blackmail, reconnaissance, he could even tell ghost stories well enough. He had never seen a ghost before, something he was eternally grateful for, until now. One way to confront his fear was the strong denial they didn't exist, but now the specter floated. Professor Bin's class was by far the most boring in all of Hogwarts. Guaranteed to induce sleepiness within 10 minutes, 5 on a warm day. As the class began to lose interest almost immediately after the ghostly teacher began his lecture, whispered conversations broke out over the classroom, many students choosing to relax and doze in the stuffy classroom. After 15 minutes of the lesson passed, the only alert student decided to sneak a glance at the silent ninja, forgotten in the corner. The deep shadows covered him, so she couldn't see his fists clenched so tightly they were white, or that his breath was coming in sharp, shallow bursts that made his chest move up and down rapidly. If she were to look in the holes in the fox-shaped mask, she would see the whites of his eyes that only showed when strong fear was coursing through the owner's body. But what she did see was two other ninjas suddenly apparate in front of the ninja. One took hold of their guard and disappeared, leaving the one with the deer mask to lean against the wall and observe the class. Quickly she turned her head around before the masked man could catch her watching and paid attention to the professor as he described a particularly nasty battle between two clans during the Ogre Wars. She felt his gaze weigh heavily on her back. She didn't turn around and sneak a peek at the guard for the rest of the lesson, although she could see some of her fellow students snatching furtive glances at the silent watcher. She didn't even look at him as she passed when the bell rang and they trooped out the room. Even when she turned the corner, Hermione Granger could feel the unblinking stare of the ninja called deer on her. She clutched her books with hands that shook. Niji was enjoying the breeze that drifted around him. From his perch on the roof of the astronomy tower, he could easily keep watch on the grounds of the school. To say he was surprised when his captain shunched it to a parallel tower, anger radiating off him would be an understatement. They weren't scheduled to swap posts for the next few hours, and nothing had breached the borders, so there wasn't anything life-threatening. But when the cold, clipped voice said they were switching up positions, he didn't question it. He knew better than to argue with the Anbu captain when he was angry. Saluting, the dove-masked assassin vanished, leaving the blond man to mutter to himself as he kept vigil over the school. Report. Alpha Team had commandeered the third-floor corridor as their base of operations. A clock chimed midnight from somewhere. Students were asleep and teachers patrolled the corridors, making sure the students remained in their rooms. The perfect time for a meeting. You missed out on some fun today, Taicho. Shikamaru said, his deer mask still firmly in place and speaking their native tongue. As sure as they were that there were no jutsus placed to spy on them, they were in enemy territory, and being cautious always paid off in their line of work. Oh? Well, it seems our charge has received detention for every day this week starting tomorrow. It's the first day. Exclaimed Naruto. Even when he was at his most troublesome, he never got an entire week of detention on the first day of the academy. It was always wise of a prankster to observe his targets before taking action. Guess which class he got it from? The one with the ministry woman. It was a statement, not a question. They had all seen this encounter happening. Start from when you took over from me. Hi. After the history lesson they had an encounter with one Cho Chang, a student from Ravenclaw. All signs point to Potter and Chang being enamored with each other. We may be able to use this. Next was a potions lesson with the Professor Severus Snape, the one who is also a member of the Order. That was entertaining to watch. Snape and Potter have some kind of mutual enmity for each other. We'll need to look into that more. Why's that? Questioned Kakashi. Snape blatantly favors his own house Slytherin over the others. Handing out punishments to the others and rewards to his own for pretty much anything. So much so it's a surprise he hasn't been pulled up on it. Even with that, he pays special attention to Potter. We'll discover their history later. Continue. Hi, Taicho. During lunch Potter, Granger and the Weasley boy argued, resulting in Potter spending the rest of the lunch period in the astronomy tower off the 7th floor. The next class was divination. The art of predicting the future. No one missed the dry, sarcastic tone in Shikamaru's voice. They all smirked. The lesson consisted of reading a book and then trying to discern omens from their dreams. Ignoring the choking that sounded suspiciously like laughter, the Nara heir plowed on. Here's the good bit. Next class was defense against the dark arts with Umbridge. He knew he had the complete attention of his audience now. The beginning of the lesson started off with Umbridge discrediting the previous 4 dark arts teachers, using their poor teaching skills as the excuse for them to get back to the basics. The first 10 minutes was of the class reading a book. Now it gets interesting. Umbridge had written the course aims on the blackboard, Hermione Granger questioned them. He could see Niji shaking his head. Even they knew Umbridge was not a foe you go against straight on, without a plan. The entire course plan was to study theory, nothing practical. Granger asked why. Umbridge's response was, if you study the theory hard enough, there is no reason why you should not be able to perform the spells under carefully controlled examiner conditions. He didn't have to see behind his team's masks to know their mouths had dropped. But that's so stupid. The Anbu captain exploded. It's like looking at letters one at a time until you can say the alphabet backwards, then being expected to read an essay. Theory's well and good, but if you don't practice. Yes, Taicho, we know. The majority of the class felt the same way too. Especially since the exams they are all fretting over have a practical segment to them. Umbridge then insisted that there was no reason to practice, since there is nothing dangerous enough to warrant using such spells. Voldemort, who she insists is dead. So they're refusing to arm the students with potentially dangerous spells they'll need to protect themselves because they want the public to remain ignorant and therefore consolidate their political positions. Hi. I hate this place. Continued Dear. The resulting argument between Umbridge and Potter resulted in her giving him his detention and then sending the boy to one Minerva McGonagall, the head of Gryffindor House, Potter's house. She is also a member of the Order and scolded Potter for being reckless and told him to keep his head down around Umbridge. At least the senseis are aware of the danger of that woman. So we'll have to accompany the boy to his detentions, Joy. I'm not in school and I have to go to detention. Naruto grumbled, fully aware to the amusement of his team. What have you learned, Dove? Apart from the fact that the chakra signatures are ghosts. Kakashi winced. The ghosts are harmless. Niji said smoothly. According to Hogwarts. A history. A ghost is the disembodied spirit of a once living wizard or witch. Only magical beings can become ghosts. These fleshless spirits were either afraid of death or have some extraordinarily strong connection to the locations they haunt. They cannot affect anything physical. But poltergeists can. What is a poltergeist? Demanded Naruto. A spirit of chaos. They can affect physical objects but can only be affected by enchanted objects. They are different from ghosts in the sense they were never alive and ghosts can only walk where their living self had. Poltergeists can go anywhere and love to. Niji trailed off. Love to what? Prank people. They are basically spirits of mischief and enjoy pranking people. The room was silent. Each of the team awaiting their captain's response. They all knew his fear. Shikamaru even had an idea of why he was so scared of ghosts. The idea of having an enemy that no matter what you did, you couldn't fight, you would be helpless if they decided to attack you or your loved ones. That was something that no matter how hard Naruto had become, would chill him to the bone. So there are a bunch of ghosts that can touch or do anything except float there, and the ones that can do stuff just enjoy pranking people. Their Taicho questioned. Hi. That makes life a lot more interesting then, doesn't it? An audible sigh of relief went throughout the room. Naruto grinned. I won't freeze up, I just hate surprises. Well, dog was meant to tell you. He just got lost on the path of life. Or did a black cat walk across your path and you were too busy concentrating on how many years of bad luck you have to remember to tell Taicho? Shikamaru asked evilly. Ma, everything turned out okay, no need to keep bringing that up. Bring what up? The fact that the Silver Fang of the Leaf, the leader of a quarter of the Ninja Alliance's army, the great copycat ninja, wielder of the Sharingan, forgot a detail in an SS ranking mission. Shikamaru continued mercilessly, grinning. You realize the next time you slip up and I happen to be there, you will pay for this tenfold. It is still so very worth it. Anything else of interest to report? Naruto interrupted. When the two former child prodigies started arguing, it went for hours. He was in a good mood, but not so good as to put up with it. The Granger girl. Shikamaru stated. What about her? It could be worthwhile to keep an eye on her. The Nara stated cautiously. He thought about what he had observed before continuing slowly. She is intelligent. The team nodded. They all knew this already. Shikamaru obviously had something else to say about her. When I took over from Taicho today, she observed the switch over. Also, during our stay at Grimmauld Place, she kept looking at our insignias. She has retrieved books on fairy tales as well as warfare from the school's library. Also, she is the student who saw through Umbridge's opening speech and simplified it for the Potter boy. We need to be careful around her. You think she could be a spy for Dumbledore or Voldemort? Naruto questioned sharply. No, I don't believe so. From the behavior the three has expressed, they see themselves separate from the Order. They will fight Voldemort their own way. So Potter is the leader and Granger is the general. Weasley would be the general. He has more connections with the other students and he probably doesn't notice but could easily lead a force against the enemy. Granger is more like strategist. She gathers the intelligence and advises Potter on what to do. If he was smarter, he would listen to her more often. As it is, I don't think they even realize they have organized themselves so. Actually, Granger probably has, hence the research into our origins as well as warfare. Very well, I will send a clone to tail her as well as Weasley. If they plan to make their own army they need to be watched. If there's nothing else, it's time for night watch. His team saluted him. Shikamaru and Kakashi disappearing, they were on patrol. Neji walked to where he had placed his bedroll. As Naruto settled down to meditate before sleep, he could hear the dove-masked Anbu mutter to himself. If this is the first day, I'll have gray hair by the end of this mission. Naruto chuckled. Indeed, the 3 years was going to be quite interesting, but hopefully, if they finished this war before Potter finishes school, they could go home. Home to where they were really needed. Feeling memories coming to the surface of his mind, the Anbu captain cleared his mind before he could think too deeply. What if Wizard Naruto teaches at Hogwarts end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.